All right, ladies and gentlemen, the golden era is upon us tonight because this is one that I think on Sportswire Radio we've been waiting to do for, I don't know, 2.5 years at least, because our guest tonight, arguably one of the most important players over the success of the last 2 years of the SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball team. No, he wasn't too bad on the court, off the court. He's sixth all time in 3-point field goals made. He is 24th now in school history and rebounds. He has been a Skyline Conference academic honor roll member. He has also been a member of the Student Athletic Advisory Committee here on SJLI, and he played for three coaches in 5 years and has a really, really interesting journey. And he's teammates with the man I'm looking at in the center, the brute force Brad Weiss. They played together for 2 years. He needs no further introduction, but we're going to give it to him anyway because this is his first time here on Sportswire Radio, and I think we've saved the best introduction for him tonight. So, wait for it. Further ado here on the Sports Report. Number one, the Sports Show. SJLI, Golden Eagles, men's basketball star. They call him Money Matt Hirdt. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been long overdue.
I can guarantee you over at the Dandy Center, with all due respect to certainly those that do the public address work there, and Andrew Capitelli, the school's SID, you ain't getting that intro, buddy, at Dandy. I'll guarantee you that much. You ain't getting that thing. They're lucky they can pronounce your name correctly.
Oh, man.
But good to be with you, obviously, and we'll get a lot into your story in a second. But I want to bring in the brute force Brad Weiss. Obviously, the brute force also an important player for the Golden Eagles over the past several years, and he played 2 seasons with you, Matt. And for those that are listening and watching this on Sportswire Radio, the brute force Brad Weiss set the tables for us in the kind of player and teammate Matt Hirdt was with you for our SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball team.
Yeah, so welcome, guys. What's up, Matt? Well, welcome to the show. But I've done enough talking about Matt. He's been on the court, but now to be on the show is pretty cool. But I got a lot to say about Matt. Obviously, as a player, it's fantastic. I mean, he came in right away, provided a big impact for us. My his first year in the program. Obviously, as you mentioned, Tom, one of the best shooters that we've had and that I've seen personally from the three-point line. But just a great guy overall, man. You know, listen, he does it all. He's a leader. Right? He's a great teammate in the locker room. He's that guy that's cracking joke sometimes, even when he's not trying to get a joke going. He's just funny in general, in my opinion. He's just a great guy to be around and in practice. One of those guys that doesn't complain, works hard all the time. And again, just a great team. You know, the guy that you always want to kick the ball out to when you're in post, like me, got an assist. Because he's always give you one. So it was a pleasure to play with him. Also watch him mature the last couple of years, because the thing I always did, and we'll talk more about this as we go, Tom, is on Matt's defensive ability. But the way that Matt progressed defensively has made me really proud. And to see what kind of leader and how he's grown from kind of the rook I was there to kind of the senior citizen last season, the oldest guy on the team. I mean, he definitely has made big strides. Teammate, it was a pleasure. Now it's really cool to be coaching against him, which we'll talk more about later in the show. But certainly a pro leader, a guy who does everything that a team needs, shoots the ball well, got so much better in different areas. And again, great teammate and just a guy to be around in the locker room and off the as well.
Absolutely no question about that, the brute force. I'm still having a little bit of technical difficulties on your end, so you might want to figure out something to adjust, because I did hear you kind of go in and out there a little bit. So if you can, try to figure that out, and definitely we'll certainly over the next hour or so help you with that if we can. But Matt, obviously you heard some of these things about the brute force, what he had to say about you. Most of them actually are true in this case, because you were a phenomenal three-point shooter. You were a phenomenal defensive player. But I'm curious, for those that are listening and watching this, in terms of how were you able to evolve as a player, because Brad makes a great point, actually. When we first got to know you 5 years ago, you were a different player, certainly a different person. We expected that, but you've had to play different roles here at SJLI. I mean, you've played for 3 coaches, you've played for, frankly, 5 different teams throughout your career here. I mean, talk about how you were maybe able to adjust to some of those things that Brad said that made you a really good player, an important player here to the success of the program the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, I played for 3 different head coaches over my 5 years at the school. I guess I'll start with my freshman year. Came in out of high school from Miller Place. Played for Kevin Spann. I played with Brad and what was it, 7 other people. It sounds crazy, but that's where the program started. And you look down the road 4 or 5 years later, and you see what we did. So it's it was a crazy journey, but I'm glad I went through it all. But freshman year felt like the first day or 2 of practice, we were like in the cafeteria recruiting guys to come join us. That's how low the numbers were. But freshman year, I got the opportunity to play a lot, which is a role honestly I never really expected. Coming into college, I actually played point guard for a majority of the season, which was very unique to me because I'm more of like an off-ball shooter.
Yep.
But I learned a lot from like a lot of the players on the team with experience, like Brad, like Frank, like Matt Renahan. Those guys really put me under their wings and taught me a lot that I used down the road. And I just learned a lot through. We lost a lot, but you lose a lot when you lose. You learn a lot when you lose. And I learned a whole lot that season. And then that off season, McSloy became the head coach. And things kind of changed. He brought in a huge recruiting class, and he kind of started to change the culture at St. Joe's. And Brad got to be a part of that his senior year. Frank, Doug, Jonah, and I think those guys really only got to see a little piece of what foundation was built. But things changed a lot. We started playing zone, which was a big change, and nobody in the Skyline really consistently plays a 2-3 zone. So that was a big adjustment. And honestly, it took a year. We struggled a little bit that year, but we stuck with it, built the foundation. And, that season I didn't really see a lot of playing time. So that was like a tough adjustment to make, going from, almost starting every game to, starting some, not even checking into the game some. But, again, I think moments like that, built me into the player I became my senior season and my grad season. Just it was a really long journey. Some days were really hard, some days were easy, some days were frustrating, some days you were the happiest person on the court. But all those moments. And then my junior season was canceled because of COVID. So we got to practice a little bit, and then we found out the season was getting cut. And then we got a spring season offered to us, so we took advantage of it. It was 6 practices. Made the most of it and just prep for any, possibility. Cause at that time there was rumors of a possible spring season happening.
Yeah, I remember that. We had Gaudieso, I want to say, on right around the time. I think you guys might have had a few practices. And I remember speaking with McSloy at that time, and we thought there was a possibility you would play. I know a couple of schools in the Skyline Conference played a few games, if I'm not mistaken. Manhattanville, I think, played a couple. I know Yeshiva obviously played several games toward the end of the season. So I know that there was that kind of, I guess, carrot that was being dangled a little bit in the air in those, I guess, maybe midwinter months, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, all we could do was prepare for the next season. And, we had a full year of McSloy, Coach G, Mantesta, Heenan, working with us in the gym. And we had really high expectations for us that season. And, nobody in the conference really believed in us or respected us. We struggled in non-conference play. But we came out swinging in the Skyline. We sent some messages early in the season, and we hit a little standstill, and then we got really hot around like Super Bowl time.
Yep. I think the game that I remember vividly that kind of changed the season in a way, I know we spoke about this several times on Sportswire, was that game, I think, before midwinter break against John Jay. You guys have a 19-point lead early, and you wind up winning. I think was it the last play of the game? Tabata makes free throws, if I'm not mistaken, and you guys come away. It was almost in that second half. You guys just couldn't buy a bucket, but you found a way to win that game. And then it was kind of after that, I think conference play started maybe 1 or 2 games afterwards, and that kind of led the team to that run you guys had that put you right near the top of the Skyline Conference there.
Yeah, for us, I think in the locker room, like the defining moment of when we knew we were like, really legit was when we played Merchant at home. It was on a Sunday night with no fans, and I think we held them to like 40 points. And they
I
were
was
like
going to
red
say,
hot.
like, what, 14 points in the second half or something like that? 15
Yeah.
points. I remember Brad and I
I was watching
recapping the game. Yep, I remember we spoke about that game, and you guys, like, I think I remember saying this, and don't quote me because somebody will from the team, I'm sure, do that. I mean, I think that might have been the best defensive performance the school had in, I don't know, since Obama was president, maybe? I mean, that's how
a
loyal
long
might have
time.
been.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was like a moment when we knew the zone was legit, and the zone would shut down teams, and if we were on with it and in our gaps and bumping people in it, it would be really tough to beat us. And then we go on the road to Yeshiva, and talk about that win. That's a win that that's a win.
I think I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll let you finish in a second. But I know Brad and I recapped it, and we've spoken about it so many times with different people on the show, and I get asked a lot about that from different coaches because we've been fortunate to work with different people. I think that was the biggest win that St. Joe's has had probably. I guess I want to say the 2015 Skyline Conference semifinals. I even would say it's actually bigger than that, and it's probably a bigger win since when we were ranked back when John Matejka was the head coach. That was the last time we were nationally ranked. That's how big and monumental that win was.
Yeah, I mean that's a win that I'll remember for the rest of my life. But I mean, you break down that Yeshiva roster, how good those guys are. I mean, you got Ryan Terrell, who how efficient that kid is, and you got Gabe Leifert, who is probably the best passer I've ever played against. And I mean, he could rebound, he could score. He doesn't choose to score, but he could score. I mean,
well, you got Terrell he's playing with. He ain't going to score as much as he'd like to, obviously.
Yeah. And then you got guys like Halpert spaced out in the corner. I mean, those are guys who shoot 50, 60% from three. So, I mean, you go there, we have our game plan. I mean, we followed our game plan to a T, and it was, I think, like a tie game at halftime.
Yep.
And we were sitting there like, all right, we could win this thing. We could win this thing. We got to make these adjustments. And I mean, the whole second half, it was basket for basket. We were just going back and forth. And then I remember Alec hit a crazy layup with like 3 seconds left on the shot clock. And then
yes.
And then Gordon's shot rolled in. And when that shot rolled in, I was like, all right, we're winning this game.
Yeah, the last, I think, what was it, the last like 10 minutes of that game, 9 or 10 minutes of that game, if I recall correctly, it was all of a sudden, it was just, they almost got, I guess for the boxing analogy, they got hit for the first time, and they got hit in the chin. They didn't know how to react, and you guys kind of were able to do the things that we saw and play again. One of the best games that the program has played in, probably a decade. And I want to ask you this question, and I know Brad was there at the time, and maybe tell us about your thoughts on this, Matt. Just talking about the Yeshiva game for a second. Did it help to the fact that you had played there in 2020, obviously still at their peak, and you guys, and Brad was obviously there. He was on the bench at the time, played whatever he played. I forget, Brad. Sorry, I forgot. I didn't look at the box score recently. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is you guys punched pretty good with them. That first half, I think, what were we down? 1 or 2, if I'm not mistaken, at halftime or something like that. And we were pretty much in that game up until, I want to say, maybe about 12 or 13 minutes left. And, I mean, did it help you maybe talking to some of the guys? I know we'll get more of Gordon's take on it next week, but you were there in 2020 and played them at their peak. Did it help for you in talking to the guys that you guys had played as well as you did there a few years ago, and maybe you felt that, you know what, I want to play here, I got confidence, and we've shown that they took us lightly then and they took us lightly at that moment, and maybe that kind of helped us a little bit. Talk to me about your thoughts on that before I bring Brad's thought on it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it sparked the guys in the locker room. Like, I mean, if you think about it, you're really playing with nothing to lose. Like, I mean, you're not going home and your season's over if you lose the game. It's a regular season game. It's a fun place to play. I mean, their fans are awesome. Like, they're really not going after you, so they kind of
it's funny. They're the only place I know of that I've covered that has like 1,000 people watching them on YouTube and like almost that many, and it feels louder than that when you're in that building. I mean, it's unbelievable, that place.
Yeah, I mean, you're warming up on the court in layup lines, and people are coming up to you, shaking your hands, and saying, "Welcome to YU." So,
I remember going to John Jay games when I covered them before COVID, and
yeah,
you would actually go there for warm-ups, and it was almost like they looked at you like, "What are you doing here?" Yeshiva,
yeah,
on the other hand, it's like, my goodness, it's almost like you're at the Super Bowl, really. It's amazing that gym is almost.
yeah, and it gets loud. I mean, we learned that this year in the playoff game, but it gets loud in that gym. So I think just playing there and having nothing to lose and going out there, and also knowing that if you come out on top, you send a message to the whole league that you're here. I mean, they're nationally ranked at the time.
Absolutely. No, definitely. It definitely did. Brad, obviously we spoke a lot about this game. I want to bring you back in here. I know you're chomping at the bit, but did you think from afar that, guys like Matt, Kevin O'Halloran, who was on the team, certainly would be two examples, two locker room leaders on the team, no question. Matt, though, probably had a little bit more of a role because he was somebody that was a regular player on the different teams and such. But do you think, Brad, that it helped maybe that having a guy like Matt or even a Kevin O'Halloran in that locker room for some of the younger guys that haven't played there, whether it's an Alec Tabata, Spencer Malloy? I mean, we can go up and down the list of different guys from the teams here, but Jake Audiello as well certainly comes to mind. But I mean, do you think it maybe helped that they were able to relax a little bit because Matt brought his leadership there and had kind of the success with you guys in that last game there, the regular season for you guys in 2020? And maybe that kind of brought something and kind of helped the guys able to hang in there and eventually pull out, again, one of the biggest wins the program's had in almost a decade.
Yeah, I think it definitely helped for sure. And by the way, can we refer to that game as the Jonah Caldwell game? All right, because that was the game. I mean,
29 points, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. 29 points, right? 28
something
or
like
29
that, yeah,
points?
close to 30. So Jonah went crazy, and I was so happy for him that game. Yeah, certainly that game.
I think he had more points in that game than you had that whole season.
Oh, don't say that. All right. You don't got to go that far. I was hurt. All right, but listen.
I did.
On a serious note, all right, on a serious note, okay, yeah, of course, going in that building and playing a competitive game like that, I mean, for sure, it definitely fuels you to go back. And Matt said it. We've said it so many times that that's one of the best places to play. At least between Farmingdale and Yeshiva, two favorite.
Farmingdale's a good place as well. Yes, Farmingdale.
As a player in the skyline, I mean, it's just. And it's also that part of you, right, that wants to go against the best teams. I mean, you go against those teams with nothing to lose, with confidence, right? Because, listen, like Matt said, you want to make a statement, do it against those type of teams. And, that's kind of the mission that we had, even when I was there. But, when those guys were there, obviously they were having success. They were doing well against the rest of this conference. So why not go in there and have a chance to win a game? Especially if you can execute a game plan from McSloy, who obviously does a fantastic job. So listen, there was no reason why you couldn't think to win. And listen, like Matt said too, they have worlds of time. I mean, I just saw Terrell a few weeks ago on the G League court.
I know, we covered it on Sportzwire. He probably is right now somewhere out there. He's going to score 15, 16 points.
Stud, Gabe Leifer, I played him immensely a couple weeks ago. The kid's still getting buckets. So, listen, that was a really good basketball team coached by a great coach.
Absolutely.
But with that being said, our program built into the same thing with some great players from Long Island, a great coach, and now they built into a program that Yeshiva does respect and does respect when we play them because they know we're going to give them a good fight. So certainly for sure, Matt's leadership was definitely big because he had the experience in that gym. He had the experience right against that team and with their personnel basically the same personnel. So it was a challenge, but those guys were up for it. They were ready for it. And yeah, of course, leadership definitely helps, and that's why they won that game.
Let me ask you this question, Matt, because obviously, certainly, you got a chance to taste some success here the last 2 years. And the first 2 years, obviously, was what it was. And certainly, it was an adversity. You learn through it. And certainly, it helps you, I think, become a better individual, teammate, and coach what you're doing now. But did you appreciate that win maybe more than other guys on that team? Because the first 2 years, we win, whatever we win, 11, 12 games in the 2 years, whatever it was. But yet, that win with Yeshiva, that's a win, puts the program on the map. In the last 2 years, obviously, we win 22 games in the Skyline Conference, a very impressive feat. But do you feel like in some ways that maybe you appreciated that win more than some other guys on that team, whether it was a McNeely, Gordiello, even a Gordon or Tabata, Malloy, anybody else that was on the team that year? And do you feel like that was something you kind of maybe cherished or appreciated more?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think if I told somebody in my freshman year, me and Brad could both agree on this, that 2 years later I was going to beat a ranked team at their place, they'd laugh in our face and say, "You'll never get there with this program." And I took that personally. I know. Brad definitely took that personally, like stuff like that. But I think I was the only guy really left on the court, so that definitely meant something to me. Reflecting on that, and we weren't able to close out certain non-conference games my first 2 years. We weren't able to close out conference games that we were in. So being able to like step on their court, kind of punch them in the face in the second half, and let them know that we're here. That one felt really good.
And we win this year also in the regular season there at the
Yeah.
Max Turner Athletic Center. I thought we were almost going to make it a trifecta there.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get into that. But, Brad, I have to, and I know I asked you this question when we recapped the game. We watched it together and we did our post-game thoughts on it. But I know for you as an alumni, obviously, I'm sure Matt hears it all the time. Your picture's still there in the building and such. And I'm sure guys are going to hear that left and right. But, it's got to have made you extra proud. Now that Matt's here and you can kind of tell it to him here live with us on Sportswire Radio, because again, the alumni over the past several years, there hasn't been much to talk about. Obviously, Coach Heenan, I'm sure, certainly Matt spoke with, and obviously he was a player on the last really good team. I know you were on the playoff team in 2017 that went on the good run and got us in there late. But for you, Brad, it had to be extra special, or you feel extra maybe satisfied or proud, maybe even is the right word to put it, in the fact that, we put it all together, we won here, and there was some lean years for a long time here. And talk about maybe how it made you feel and how proud it was to see what these guys did here last year at the Max Stern Athletic Center against a nationally ranked powerhouse in Yeshiva.
Oh yeah, obviously as an alumni, the one thing I said, and Matt knows this from when I left, was that I just wanted the program to turn around and get back to what we should be. And again, Matt said it that last year that I was there, even though I wasn't on the court, you could just tell, right, that we were kind of turning in the right direction. And what we wanted was to continue to push that narrative. And a win like that was going to take it to the next level. We knew that that was going to be the case. So listen, obviously as an alumni, yeah, I'm proud. I'm still representing the program all the time. As you said, if I could take my second for fame, I still am in the dancing center. Right? So you know I'm there. All right. So listen, and again, we have our show as well. So for me, it was just awesome to recap the game like that and say, yeah, the program has done this. They've gotten to this level. Right. At that time, they weren't just beating Yeshiva, but they were winning a lot of games. And that's something that, for the last couple of years that I was there, we weren't winning a lot of games. And to see the team just go in reverse direction, winning games against good teams, right in the skyline. And again, we talk about it on the show all the time. The skyline's full of different teams. Like there's one team
absolutely
that plays this way, one team that plays another way. It is not easy to make an adjustment from game to game. And for these guys to go into the last few seasons and win games on a consistent basis for the most part, beat a team like Yeshiva, right? That is a major accomplishment. And considering even all the coaching change as well, right? The program has had a solidified estate right now when it comes to winning and competing for Skyline playoff spots, which again is something we couldn't say when I was there when we were in the quote unquote, Matt, doom days of St. Joe's.
Yeah, I would say the lean years. You could say the doom days, whatever you want to call it, but certainly it was definitely a different time than we're in now. Obviously, a golden era is definitely upon us, and I want everybody to fly with us and follow Matt Hirdt on Instagram at Matt_Hirdt. Certainly, he'll put a Hirdt on you on the court if you don't follow him. And, of course, the SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball program on Instagram and Twitter as well, SJLI_M. B-ball. Matt, do you feel like the program now is in a good place? 22 wins the last 2 years in the Skyline Conference. Skyline Conference is certainly a very tough conference. There are some really good teams, and it's no picnic each night. So I kind of feel like in a lot of ways to win 22 games these last 2 years, back-to-back seasons above 500, I think the program's in a good place. I think we're going to see a core of players. Your brother's going to be a part of that. We'll talk about the current team in a second, but do you feel that the program's in the right direction here over these last 2 years?
Yeah, I definitely think it's heading in the right direction. I think, though, the way the season kind of ended and the way the guys feel is that we know it needs to be better, going forward. And I think the guys are going to take that personally this offseason. And, I really think a lot of people are going to be surprised with how well they play next year. But, they have the right coach in place. Yule's going to get them ready for next season. We kind of built the foundation on our pack line defense, and, I think it's only going to get better. And, on the nights that we really showed up defensively, teams had a really hard time scoring the ball on us. I mean, look at that Farmingdale game on that Saturday morning when they scored 40, I think it was like 42 points against us.
Yep.
Yep. That's what happens when we play defense like that. So, we definitely got to work on the offense a little bit as a program, but that's going to come. And, we got the right guys there. Everyone returns but me and Jake. So the roster is going to be loaded, and I'm sure Yule's going to bring in some really good players. But I think, the biggest thing the guys have to do is they need to take the off season really serious, stick together this summer, play ball together as much as possible. And then they really got to come out and they got to punch all the non-conference teams in the face and send a message to the skyline. Because, that's something we've really struggled with in my whole time here is, starting the season, strong.
Yeah, the non-conference, even these last 2 years where we improved and obviously finish above 500, certainly the 2 years in the Skyline Conference, we played great. I think to win 22 games here. But I think the two takeaways I'll take away, and I'll get your thoughts, and certainly Brad's in a second, was unfortunately we didn't get that home playoff game at Danzy. I think last year, kind of unfortunate, like you win 12 games in conference and don't get a home playoff game. And this year, we win 10 games, but there was a couple of games, obviously, we'd have liked to have had back. I think that would have made a difference for us, and maybe it's a different outcome. And I do think a home playoff game makes a big difference for us. But, I mean, when it comes to that here, obviously the non-conference was probably the Achilles heel of this team, I would say. And at times, finishing games, but I still think to win 22 games in this conference the last 2 years, that was certainly very, very impressive. But, I mean, what do you do differently then to maybe play better in those non-conference games? We had some heartbreakers. We had Baruch. We had Lehman this year in overtime. That was just a tough one. And we played some good teams and weren't able to kind of finish through this year. We played in the tournament there, could have had that. I mean, what do you say to the guys, if anything, to maybe improve on the non-conference before I get Brad's thoughts on it?
I mean, it's tough because, we go into practice on October 15th and we, work our butts off. So it's not like we're not practicing hard enough. But I think the suggestion I would give is just get in the gym more. I mean, the gym's open all the time. Get as many shots as possible because, the first few non-conference games, we were only shooting like 40% from the field.
I know.
When teams come in the gym and they start shooting well, you got to outshoot them. So, just get a lot of reps up. And I think they got the right leaders there. You got X coming back, Spencer, McNeely. They're definitely going to push the guys to get in the gym a lot more. And, I think it's just being disciplined. And, you signed up to play college basketball. You got to love it. So get in the gym and fall in love with the process and you'll see the results.
Brad, obviously we covered this team quite a bit here over these past few years on Sportswire, and we would recap the week. Some weeks we would certainly, when it came to non-conference play, we'd try to do our best to kind of certainly put the team on a high, and other weeks we really couldn't, unfortunately. But, I mean, what do you be in that spot to kind of maybe improve? Because, we have struggled these past several games. Now, obviously, I'm going to make a counter in a way to kind of defend the guys because I do think that this year's team actually had an excuse. I'll get to that after your thoughts. But, I mean, what do you do if you're in that locker room? Because we have struggled. We've been under 500 these last 2 years in non-conference play, and there were some games I think that we could have had, unfortunately. And early in the year, whether it's just because you're getting warmed up, whether it's because of lack of rotation in your shots or whatever it is, new coach, I don't know, getting over COVID. But, I mean, what do you do to kind of avoid that and get off to the strong start that kind of puts us into where we can be at the top of the Skyline Conference?
Yeah, so let me start by saying this, Tom. No excuses, all right? Don't give me that excuse now.
I'm going to do it anyway because the guys are going to be listening, and I want to make sure that I put it out there.
All right, that's number one. But let me talk about it because Matt kind of took on the physical side of things where, you got to get more shots up, you got to do more, right? I'm going to take the other side of this. I'm going to say it needs to be more of a mental game right now that we got to do a better job with because mentality-wise, listen, as much as you don't want to admit it, and it's not true necessarily, but – listen, when it comes to Skyline games, there's a little more sense of urgency than there is for the non-conference games. And as much as you don't want to say it, and you say the right things, right? Me now and Matt too, as a coach, right? We know how that goes, right? With coaching. So listen, it is a mental thing, and a lot of those games, especially early in the season, Tom Bryce, when you're playing non-conference games, both teams are kind of getting to know each other, and both teams are kind of getting the first couple games in. It comes down to those 50-50 balls, extra possessions and doing the little things to win games, which maybe, other teams have kind of taken a little step on us at the beginning of seasons. But once again, that's the thing that, you overcome with mentality, right? Being a little bit, more prepared in regards to mentality, not in regards, because I know they were prepared when it comes to game plan, right? But in regards to mentality, right? All right, listen, this is a non-conference game, but this means just as much as a conference game, right? We want to start off 1-0, one game at a time, right? Those type of things are the messages that we try to preach, even me as a coach now, because I've had it, my experience, 2 years in a row as a JV coach that we've started 1-3, and we don't come up to a good start, right? Because we're thinking about, Baldwin's coming and Port Washington's coming. We're not really focusing on who we need to focus on first. So ultimately, I think it's also a mental thing. But with Matt said it already, you also got to get the work and you got to put in the extra work. That's the difference between, teams making shots, teams not making shots. So once again, the things that you can control, I always say it, control the controllables. You got to do a better job of that to win games, especially in non-conference.
All right, fair enough. But I'm gonna say this, Matt, and actually defend to you guys, and I'm actually because I'm prepared because I've been using my law background here quite a bit on Sportswire Radio. So I'm gonna say a few reasons why I think the team should get a pass, even when it comes to the season. First of all, your brother was injured for a significant amount of time. Number one. Secondly, Alec Tabata missed about 60% of the season. Alec Tabata arguably you could have said was the X factor to last year's team, and I think he definitely helped a lot with the offense when he came back in there. And also, a guy that became one of my favorites that missed a significant amount of time in the second half of the season on the back end, who is coming back, Liam the Rejector Shee. So if you think about it, you missed some important cogs to this team, and I think it was either you or somebody on the team, I said off the air, to what did we play together as a team? The full lineup, 2 games the entire season. I think the last game at Brooklyn and the playoff game against Yeshiva. So this year, is it fair to say that, you know what, maybe there was an excuse? We didn't really have the entire team 100% fully healthy until the very end of the season, and maybe that's why we struggled not only late in games in the Skyline Conference, but also in the non-conference play.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think just the Sarah Lawrence game, the Brooklyn game, and then the playoff game, we had our full roster. So, going into the playoffs, we only really got 80 minutes of basketball together as a team, as a full squad of live minutes against different competitions. So, I mean, I think it definitely put us at a disadvantage, but, also that's part of the game and, that's part of college basketball and other guys, have to step up. And I think, we stepped up into that role and a lot of guys played crucial minutes, but I definitely think that if they can all stay healthy next year, they're going to be a really dangerous team in the Skyline.
That is absolutely a foregone conclusion. 22 wins in the Skyline Conference. The last 2 years, only a handful of teams were able to win 10 games back-to-back in the Skyline Conference, and that was certainly our SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball team, and Matthew Hirdt was certainly one of those reasons why we are very honored to have him here on Sportswire Radio. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, and alongside myself is the brute force Brad Weiss, who at one point was 24th all-time in school history in rebounds. Now he's 27th. So he's had a couple different people that have passed him. He's still near the top of the list in block shots, but Matt Hirdt was one of those players that passed him in rebounds. Matt is also 6th in 3-point field goals, made a decorated career for us here at SJLI. And of course, if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, give us a like and follow on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, YouTube at Sportswire Radio, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportinarium.com/player. And we are looking forward to more coverage of the team next week with Gordon Scheuer. So certainly Matt is warming things up for us, but we in all seriousness are very, very honored to have the legendary Matthew Hirdt here with us. Certainly did a lot of great things on the court and off the court with us. But speaking of things off the court, which I really think was a reason why you were a leader here on this team, was your role at SAC. And I know Alex Earhart came on with us during the COVID run, and obviously Alex in a lot of ways was kind of like your counterpart here with the basketball program. And talk about maybe SAC and your leadership role in that. Maybe that kind of how it helped you here, not only with what you do on the court, but maybe your leadership that you provided and why the team's turned it around here these last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, SAC definitely gave me a platform to lead. I mean, first of all, I got to give all the credit to Alex Earhart. I mean,
Alex is awesome. She's great.
Definitely, doing most of the leading out there. So I have to give her that credit. I always tried to help out the best I could, and I think, just volunteering and talking in front of different groups of people made me comfortable. talking in front of people. That was something I kind of struggled with going into college. Brad definitely knows.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, I heard Brad didn't struggle with that. A little birdie told me that Brad had no problems at all when he came to SJLI.
I'll comment on that next. Go ahead, man.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
Well, it's funny because Brad's picture's still up in the Danzy, and mine already got replaced by Alec. So they must like.
No, so my thought on that is, did Brad pay somebody at the school? Was there a payola involved? Illegal activity here? Did somebody get paid off? That's my first thought on that, because you had a better career at SJLI than Brad did.
Yeah, but I definitely think SAC, representing basketball, just put me in a better position to lead the team off the court too, with some activities and stuff that we volunteered with. And then this year, Tom Bell, Basir, and Ryan took it over. So they're going to, be great leaders for the SAC going forward. And, it's definitely in good hands.
Absolutely. No question about that. And we'll get to some of the other guys on the team. Tom Bell, Justin Turner, certainly another guy I definitely want to give a big shout out to. Also, certainly Ryan McNeely we'll get into. Ryan, I kind of think in some ways probably will take over your role. I think maybe he's a slightly different player, but I see some similarities with there. So we'll definitely get into that. But Brad, do you want to follow up on that? Because you did say you want to rebuttal.
I definitely want to follow up on that. So first of all, let me make this clear, right? Matt, obviously, of course, he wanted to be in the SAC, but he needed something else to do besides killing kids in ping pong at the front desk. I mean, that was getting boring for him, so he had to do something else. But with that being said, oh my God! I mean, just listening to Matt right now compared to when I first saw him walk into the Dancy Center.
You have said that in prior shows. I will give you that much.
I mean, listen, I remember Matt the first time I saw him play one-on-one. It was against a kid named Anthony. I don't even know what I forgot what he's doing now. I remember Matt playing one-on-one, and boy, did he look scared, nervous, didn't say a lot of words. I even asked him, how'd you think you did? I got a one-word answer. It wasn't the most talkative guy, most outgoing guy at first, but just to see the maturity he's had since he was the freshman and the young guy in the program is something that I love to see, especially, as someone who really enjoyed playing with Matt as a player. So as a leader now, just to see where he's came from is great. So certainly, again, to make that point, he definitely was not the most outgoing guy at first, but now, maybe not as much as me. I do a lot of talking, but Matt's definitely.
I've heard that from different people out and about. They said Brad Weiss, he could talk almost to anybody about anything. That's what I've heard. I'm not going to tell you who's told me that, but that's what I've heard.
I do talk a lot, and I try to keep it relatively, low key, but sometimes it's not. As we know from the sports report, by the way.
Obviously, yes, you certainly cut your teeth in that. But actually, I have to follow up to, Matt, obviously we spoke about some of the different activities that the guys had. And apparently ping pong came up and some other sports. You want to elaborate on this? Because you're the first player we've had actually on the team currently that could talk about this. Gordon, we didn't yet get a chance to talk about that because we were doing the pregame during the playoffs, and we only had X amount of time with Gordon. I'm sure next week we'll get into that. But you want to talk about some of these activities here with us?
Yeah, we had some pasta parties, and in my basement we got a ping pong table and a pool table. So
I heard you got a pretty big pool also from a little birdie. You have a pretty big swimming pool in your house.
Yeah, we got a nice pool. So we had some pool basketball games. So there was definitely a lot.
I want to ask Matt how that went
off the court. Yeah, I'm not a big contact guy, so I kind of shied away from the contact and stuck to just shooting threes in the pool. But no surprise there. But we also had a ping pong table in the Danzy Center for a while. So there was definitely a lot of ping pong matches, but unfortunately that ping pong table was taken away after COVID. So
now, am I able to bring this up? Because correct me if I'm wrong before I get into some comments here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it Mark Roberts Jr. that was the king of ping pong, or was it Mark Roberts Jr. the king of something? And I know we spoke about this on prior Sportswire radio shows. You want to confirm or deny this, Matt Hirdt? Now that we have you on the show, certainly with the brute force, I'm sure Brad's already turning red on this. But can you confirm or deny some of this?
I've never played Mark, but I'm pretty sure Mark is the best because Ryan McNeely has beaten me in ping pong, and Mark has beaten Ryan. So I think Mark might be the king of ping pong.
all I'll say is to go on that point. When I was there with Mark would always challenge me every single day. So, and we all know. And by the way, I'm done with being called a bad ping pong player. Other people call me bad. I'm just an average player. All right, Matt is above average. All right, this guy's got like every defense for any ball you hit. I mean, this guy's going left hand, right hand. I mean, for me, I only had really one hand, but I was an average player. I don't want to be called bad. All right, but Mark definitely, it was crazy because I actually showed Mark the way, and then all of a sudden he started to get good at it and started beating me. So that's the story with Mark. Yeah, I'm sure he could talk about that.
I'm sure Mark, certainly if Mark wants to come on Sportswire one of these days, I'm sure we could definitely talk to Mark about this, but they do have some comments. Jonathan Hallman says hello. I don't know if we know what Jonathan Hallman. Am I missing something here? But this individual here, which I have to bring him up because he's next week's guest, Gordon Scheuer says, make shots. And now that we have a chance to speak about Gordon with us here tuning in, I mean, you want to talk about Gordon in all seriousness, kind of the role that he played in this team. Because you know what? In a lot of ways, I really do think Gordon helped turn around the program. Yes, you had a lot of leadership. Yes, you were here. You definitely helped, no question. Obviously, there was a lot of things you did. Some of the other players that certainly came up, Spencer Malloy, Alec Tabata, no question, Ryan McNeely, Jake Odiello. But Gordon, I think, brought that cool hand, Luke, veteran leadership. We saw it all crystallize in the Yeshiva game, and I've said it time and time again during last season. He was really one of my favorite players, and he was really that veteran guy, could always make a big free throw shot, made big plays defensively, was safe with the ball. I mean, talk about Gordon, the role he played on this team in terms of helping turn around this program.
Yeah, I mean, I think, take, basketball out of it. I mean, I don't think we get to the next level of this program without Gordon coming in. I mean, just the leadership he provided, he didn't really play too much at Lebanon, but, coming into St. Joe's, he saw, so many good players played for a good coach. He was a good basketball player in high school. He had so much experience under his belt, and came into a starting point guard role, which was a lot to handle. And, he handled it with ease. I mean, he was definitely more like the verbal leader of that team. And I was more of like, I'd say like the actions leader. And it was like, a really good partnership. It worked out. The guys, responded well to it. But I mean, Gordon was crazy. He would go after me every single practice. He would yell at me. He'd get in my face, passing up on open shots. He demanded, everyone's best always, and he wasn't afraid to get in someone's face. And I think sometimes you need that. And I think he got a lot of guys to really reach their potential that season. But the whole make shots thing is because he came after me one day after the I think I shot like 0 for 9 against Pratt and had like 2 air balls.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah, and he went after me, and he's like, I don't care if you miss 30 shots in a row. I want the next 30 up. So, yeah, he definitely always had my back, so I appreciate it.
And we definitely appreciate Gordon. I'm looking forward to having him in your chair next week. And, speaking of Gordon, and I think I should do it now, Brad, because it's a great time right now. Yeah. Obviously, I'm going to do it. I'm going to definitely do it here now because I always like to put people on the spot on Sportswire Radio because obviously we speak with people from all around the world here. So I'm used to definitely people taking shots at us here. But now, Matt, from my understanding, obviously we spoke a little bit about it, but Gordon obviously did his own impersonation of yours truly and the Brute Force Brad Weiss. And now, from my understanding, there was some ringleaders involved in that. There was some other people in the locker room that was certainly orchestrating this. And for those that are listening and watching this on Sportswire Radio, especially eventually our Golden Eagles fans, and I'm sure most of the guys in the locker room, I mean, you want to talk about those impersonations? You want to talk about some of the ringleaders or anything else that you can elaborate on, especially for those that are listening and watching us?
Yeah. I mean, Gordon can impersonate anybody. He definitely has some really good, Tom Bryce and Brad Weiss impersonations. But, I mean, you got to ask Gordon on the show next week. I mean,
we kind of did, but we didn't have enough time to really fully elaborate on it because obviously we were trying to cover you guys against Yeshiva in the playoff game. But I mean, we're going to definitely make sure that we spend ample time on this, undoubtedly.
Yeah. I mean, his best impersonation is Conor McGregor.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he does really good Conor McGregor.
I got to hear the Conor McGregor one because I used to do a little bit of UFC coverage on sports. But we have a wrestler in the UK who kind of looks like a UFC wrestler. Actually did a little bit of a shoot stuff in there. I have to ask him then about the Conor. I'm going to put him on the spot then, Gordon. You're going to be doing the Conor McGregor impersonation for us next week.
Yeah, but I mean, I was definitely one of those ringleaders encouraging it. You know, while we're getting treatment in the training room and stuff, I'd always ask Gordon to do it. I always found it really funny, and a lot of the guys thought it was funny, especially some of the guys that never met Brad yet, so they just hear this.
I haven't met the guys yet either. I mean, I hope next season, obviously, they'll lift some of these different things, and we can actually go out and meet the guys off the court. I remember when I was covering you guys, and I obviously John Jay, I did a lot of work with them prior to COVID, and also Five Towns. I mean, I would go on the court regularly and speak to different players and the coaches, and I'm looking forward to hopefully doing that this upcoming season here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can go to a game together, all three of us.
Oh, it sounds good to me. Listen, I'm available.
Before we move on, I got to follow up, just like I did with Gordon. Right? I got to follow up on this, Matt, because Gordon told us the last time we had him, right, that you guys use this almost as language in the locker room, right? And almost like, all right, at any given time, someone would start with Tom Bryce's, line and then go to my line and then, just go back and forth. So not only do I want to ask how that begun really, all right, but also, did you guys use it as some sort of team bonding or something in regards to like getting each other pumped up or excited?
We don't want to turn the guys off from listening to us further. We don't want to make this about us on Sportswire. But
this is our time to shine for a second, Tom. All right?
No, I definitely think it definitely provided some like spotlight to you guys. We got into the training room, and then Dean started tuning in, our trainer. He watches the shows now. He thought it was
I know. I have to say, and I want to give you guys credit because I even noticed when I speak with these different wrestlers, and I'll check my Instagram stories or my likes, and I see it's guys from the team, and I'm like, oh boy, these guys definitely are paying attention because I'll have some wrestler come on, some big dude, and he'll go on and off, and yet I see you guys check it out. I'm like, wow. I mean, I've had countless other people. Stop me and say, hey, I saw you speak with this person. But even I see the non-basketball stuff you guys check in. It's really impressive, I have to say.
Yeah, I think someone was even like in your live stream right before we hopped into Yeshiva for the playoff game because the bus was, we're still on the bus. So, guys were locked in 2 hours before a playoff game.
Yes, I think we did have somebody. I think it was
Nick.
I think Nick Nemekis. Certainly, Nick Nemekis is one of our favorites on Sportswire.
Yeah, we should
give him a segue. We should give him a good segue, Nick Nemekis.
Oh, Matt, say what you're about to say.
He's always saying he was the best guy from Plainview.
Yeah, he had a better career than me at Plainview.
Well, you know what? And I know where he got this line from because I'm pretty sure. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I remember saying on a Sportswire show once when we spoke about one of the games that Nick Nemekis got in there, and I actually said that Nick Nemekis might have had a better career at Plainview than Brad Weiss. I think that's where Nick Nemekis heard it from. So you know what? He took it to heart and said, you know what? Tom did make a good point. He had a better career at Plainview than the Brute Force, and maybe he ran with it. Maybe that's where that stems from. I think that's where I heard that from.
Yeah, I think so.
There you go.
All right, so listen, Matt. One quick thing. All right, so really, on a serious note, how did you guys, did you guys enjoy like watching us all the time? Were you guys constantly listening to what we had to say? And was there any take, by the way, that you remember that I had, maybe that you didn't like or you did like?
Boy, Nick, it's about you.
Yeah. I definitely think that we all loved it. We'd always talk about it. D3 basketball doesn't get too much attention unless you're
not at all.
And you're on d3hoops.com. But we loved it. All the attention we got from our school because you guys are really the only team that you guys cover in the Skyline Conference. So, checking in every Friday, seeing what you guys are saying about us, interviewing coaches, communicating with the players. We all, really enjoyed it. I know me and Jake were a little upset we never got the chance to meet you, but we'll definitely have to come to a game next year to hang out with you guys.
I look forward to that, obviously. Yeah, definitely, certainly things happen, but obviously there's a long future ahead, and I'm sure that we'll definitely correct that, and obviously want to thank the guys for this support. But I do want to segue into some of the players that I think don't get the spotlight, but they were really important. And Gordiesso had said this when he came on last year, and the guys that were in practice and really pushed you guys to kind of be the players that you were, whether it's a Nick Nemekis, who we mentioned, Chris Connors. Chris Connors, a guy that came on here, had some important minutes. Tom Bell. I think Tom Bell is a guy that we'll see coming forward. Mark Roberts, obviously, was also here prior to COVID, and certainly those guys. Kevin O'Halloran last year, obviously, the old man Kevin O'Halloran was now on his way to being a bodybuilder, weightlifter, whatever, world's strongest man, Long Island's strongest man, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, talk to me about those players that kind of pushed you guys that maybe didn't get the minutes that we would see on the box score, or maybe talk about them as much as you or your brother or Alec Tabata, Spencer Malloy, Gordon last year, Gordiello, McNeely, and so on and so on. Guys, again, like a Nick Nemekis, a Chris Connors, a Tom Bell, or even a Justin Turner, who at times came on, but just talk about those guys, and of course, Mark Roberts, Brad's also former teammate. Talk about those guys and how important they were in kind of pushing you guys.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys came, right out of high school and were, the stars of their team or the second best player on their team. And then, you come to St. Joe's and it's tough when you don't see the minutes you'd necessarily want to see. But, I mean, they never complained. They showed up to practice every day. And, you really look into it. Like, you beat a team like Yeshiva that's nationally ranked. Those guys are running the scout. And, Nick Nemkis is Ryan Terrell. And, if he doesn't play perfect in practice and we don't get a, realistic picture of what it's going to look like, we don't win that game. So, them showing up every day, competing. I mean, it's not like we were beating them every day in practice. There was days where they, kicked our ass. I mean, you got Nick Nick could score at will. I think he's a guy that's going to step into a role next year. I honestly do. I think he's got a real shot. You got a guy like Chris Connors, who's a great teammate. I mean, he could shoot the ball, from deep. He's got that quick lefty release. I mean, he's hilarious. A lot of people wouldn't expect that, but Chris Connors might be the funniest kid.
Yeah, you know what? Watching him on the court, I mean, he seems like he's kind of like Clark Kent, super straight-laced. I would never have guessed that he's the
he's a
stand-up comedian.
Yeah. So you got Chris, you got Basir. I mean, Basir doesn't realize how important he is to the program, but, coming from Queens every day, he shows, future recruits that it's possible to make that commute. I mean, he commutes every day. So, you got a guy like him. I mean, Basir is another guy that I think has a really good opportunity to play next year. He's going to compete because, he could play basically the 2 through the 4. And then you got a guy like Justin who saw, kind of.
He had some big moments for you. There was a game or two this year where Justin got you guys a victory, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure at Danzy, it was one of those games he had like maybe 15 points, I think, off the bench. And I think in the second half, he might have scored all those points. And he played a great game. And there was times, I think, that Uhl put him on the court at times because he trusted him with the ball.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was the Farmingdale game. He went off in the second half.
That's it. That's the game.
That win.
Yep.
I mean, that's a freshman doing that against a team that made the tournament. So he's got a very bright future. I mean, he was a stud at ESM. Came in, started while Alec was injured, and then ultimately lost the starting spot. But, he never complained, kept his head up. And, I mean, he's going to be dangerous the next 3 years in the Skyline Conference.
Absolutely, no question about it. And that's a guy, again, I think at the end of the season, Brad, I know when we were doing our recap shows, he was a guy I really, really trusted. I trusted him with the ball. He was somebody he almost played like a veteran. I mean, you would never have known in some of the spots that he was in that he was a freshman because he was so clutch at times. And I think that's a guy that we're going to certainly look forward to in the future. But I had to ask you, Matt, this question in all seriousness. Playing with your brother has to be a special thing. And, not very many people can say, hey, I've got to play a couple of years with my brother. And your brother obviously was an important part to this team this last 2 years. Unfortunately, had some injuries this year. But your brother, obviously, in a lot of ways, was also one of our favorites because of what he brought to this team in size and kind of the defense. Kind of played a little bit like Brad in a way. Maybe Timmy could do a little bit more things than Brad does. I'm just being facetious with you, Brad. But all kidding aside, Timmy was a really important player, and you got the opportunity to play with him, and you call him your brother. And I have to ask you about that experience. There's very few people that get to be on a major successful college basketball team that wins as many games as you do, and you get to share in that moment. I mean, talk to me what it was like playing with your brother.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. Like you mentioned, not a lot of people could say that they played college basketball with their brother for 2 years. But I was lucky enough to play with him in high school, and then 2 years later, McSloy recruited him, and I was lucky enough to play another 2 with him in college. there was definitely days where we went at each other, didn't necessarily get along, but that's what comes with being a brother. So we definitely made it hard on McSloy and Yule some days, but ultimately we had some really good moments together on the court. It was a ton of fun. It's funny that we probably couldn't be more opposite on the basketball court.
Yeah, you guys do play two totally different positions. Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you ask him to run through a brick wall, he'd probably run through it 6 times. You'd probably have to pay me to run through that brick wall. But
Well, you got a face that looks like you probably wouldn't want to mess up. Whereas your brother's kind of like Brad, kind of like got that rugged, tough, gritty inside player. You guys are two different players. I mean, you want the ball. He probably wants to be away from the ball.
Yeah, he'd rather just knock someone over.
Exactly. I would love to be a birdie on the wall when him and Liam Shee are going at it in practice. That would be a sight. I have to say, those two guys going at it. I mean, that would almost be like for our wrestling coverage on Sportswire when I have these big wrestling guys come on and they kind of fight it out. I would love to see almost your brother Timmy and Liam Shee one of these days in practice, kind of just battling out there in the low post. I mean, certainly, I'd love to be a birdie on the wall for that. Maybe I could do the play-by-play even.
Yeah, I mean, you got 2-on-2 big men sessions with Coach Danian. You got Spencer, Mark, Timmy, and Liam going at it. It's a scary sight there. I mean, the big men that we have, and they're all coming back. So, I mean, that's, I think, their biggest advantage next year is how talented our big men are.
Let me ask you a follow-up question before I bring Brad in, because obviously you talk about last year, nobody saw it coming. I remember Brad and I met one day. We were speaking about the team beforehand. We didn't know what to expect. Obviously, it was McSloy's second year. First year he gets to recruit. It's a young team. A lot of players had promised. We recapped him, covered him, but we also had COVID. So nobody knew anything, right? But then this year, you guys were expected to be much more competitive at the top. But we had some injuries, some setbacks. Still have a good season, but we have that. But I feel like for the first time, and tell me your thoughts on this, that now I think this team is expected now to be in the postseason. This team is expected to be one of those top 3 or 4 teams. Not just make the Skyline playoffs, but also now get that home game so we can go deep into the tournament and win some games. I mean, do you feel like that the guys that are returning, obviously most of them sans you and Gordiello, that's kind of the case, that those guys now, after exit meetings and everything else, that they know that, okay, you know what? We're expected now to be at the top of the Skyline Conference, and now it's expected to be in the playoffs, and everybody's coming for us, and, it's going to be now, well, this is what we have to do. I mean, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way the guys are looking at it and, the way that, me and Jake kind of told them they should look at it is that, you got basically 90% of the team returning. You're losing 2 starters, but you're losing 2 starters who had roles that are replaceable. I mean, me and Jake, played defense and then, had our roles. I think we each averaged like 7 or 8 points a game. Those are spots where we have guys that can step into those roles. And, part of being a good program is when you lose guys are ready to step into those roles. And I think we have guys that are ready to step into those roles, whether it's, McNeely or a guy like Basir or Nick or Justin, whoever it is. I think, when you establish a culture and change the culture at the school, that's what you need. You need guys to be ready to step into those roles. So I think the expectation for the guys is to be at the top. And I know that they want a home playoff game. And I know Yule and Mantesta and Danian are going to put them in a position to get there. And, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt like that was the thing. I know we spoke about this with some of the guys off the air, and obviously Brad and I spoke about it on the air and even off the air amongst ourselves watching these games, that was kind of the thing we were really hoping for, is you guys get that home playoff game, because we knew we could win that home playoff game. Going on the road and Manhattanville and Yeshiva, obviously we've had success against them, but it's just playoff basketball in a different gym. It's just a totally different environment there. And obviously, look, it is what it is, and we'll talk about the 2 games in a second, no question. But, I mean, Brad, I wanted to bring you in here, and obviously hearing some of the different things that Matt had to say, and obviously Timmy Hirdt, somebody also very well, and just from afar watching that, and what was that like for you seeing Matt play with his brother? Obviously, his brother well, obviously, because you've known Matt, and just talk about that experience. I think that's a really fascinating experience to touch upon here.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and it actually goes back to even before Tim got to St. Joe's with me, because I remember going to one of his games at Amityville with Matt and watching Tim play, and I'm like, wow, this kid's awesome, but he's totally different than you, Matt. Like, don't you think is that really your brother? Like, is it like, because he played such a different style, but obviously as somebody who plays, in the post, plays physical, does the dirty work. To see a guy like Tim, he's definitely my type of player. He just does everything. Like you said, Tom, he does a few things a little bit better. One of them is dunking, obviously, which I really could never do well. But ultimately, he's a tough guy to guard, but he's the guy that everybody wants on their team because he does all the things the team needs to win. So I've always respected Tim, and I kind of when I got to see him, and by the way, before he came to St. Joe's, he was supposed to be on my team for the elite clinic, elite camp. And unfortunately, I think he busted his head open or something. And I'm like, oh, man. But, I had McNeely and Malloy on my team. So, I got to see some of the guys that ended up being Golden Eagles with him. But, for them to play together, that's definitely something special. And the fact that they have such different styles also allows them to play together because, Tim's closer to the basket, Matt's out on the perimeter. Right? Matt's able to shoot the three. Timmy's getting down to the rim and creating shots for Matt. They complement each other very well. And on top of that, Tim's a lefty, Matt's a righty, so they could play both sides of the floor. So there's a lot of things to like. And like I said, they were two great guys. I really thought that they had a chance to play together. And, Matt spoke to it as his brother. But as a person watching it, it was pretty cool to see two brothers who have been very successful in the program play together. And have a great role in the team as well. Obviously, for Timmy's sake, I know the injury bug, got him this year. Trust me, I know how that feels. But I do think that he's going to bounce back. He's going to have a great career for St. Joe's in the next couple of years.
Oh, no question about it. And he was a big part of last year's team. You think about some of the success that he wound up having, and I kind of think he was another one of those young players that really propelled us. Obviously, the other player I want to speak about who was kind of, I guess, if you would have had a six-man award in the Skyline Conference, I think that he certainly would have been one of those candidates that could have won it. That was Ryan McNeely. And Ryan McNeely was a guy that really, if you think about a number of games these last 2 years, really helped us win a number of these different games. He's a clutch three-point shooter. He's good at the free throw line. He's good at a number of different ways. And I'm curious, Matt, on your thoughts. I mean, does he go into the starting rotation next year? Would you keep him as a sixth man and kind of be able to put him in a spot almost where John Jay had a guy the first year where he was here, Garrison Watkins, where Garrison Watkins plays as a sixth man, plays a number of different minutes, different players, obviously, between Watkins and McNeely. But I kind of feel like McNeely really was one of those X factors. And I mean, do you put him in the rotation or do you kind of keep him in this special spot where he's kind of your six-man guy off the bench that can give you instant minutes, instant points, and kind of fuel you guys in certain spots? I mean, just talk about Ryan McNeely for a second.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, me and him are very close, business partners and everything, but I would definitely say that I think he'd be, pretty successful in the starting lineup. Just because of the offensive struggles we had at points in the season. I mean, most of our starters play like 25 plus minutes. So I feel like you might as well just throw him in the starting lineup. But at the end of the day, he'll be ready for whatever role coach gives him. He's a great player, great teammate. So he'll take whatever he's asked to do and he'll probably do a great job at it. So I think he'll be ready for it.
Oh, absolutely, no question about it. Again, the McNeely name is certainly synonymous with basketball here on Long Island. Obviously, McNeely's brother is obviously getting ready. Obviously, his father, Ryan McNeely Sr., we spoke about him, Brad, countless times on Sportswire Radio. We'll definitely get into the Long Island Sound here in a few minutes for sure. But speaking of coaches, I wanted to ask you this question, Matt, because I, again, found this so fascinating. You touched upon it briefly, but in 5 years you're here, you play for three coaches. Now, it's one thing when we talk here on Sportswire, we just had on a coach from our Five-Town Sound Athletics program where they changed from the women's soccer coach to another coach. We've had the basketball coaches on, they changed. But it's one thing when you play for three coaches in 5 years, three different personalities, three different systems. I mean, what is that like? I mean, very few people can say whether it's 1, 2, 3, or anywhere. Even in the NBA, you play for three coaches in 5 years. I mean, what was that like?
First year with Span, he taught us a lot. I think one thing that really stood out about him was he taught me a lot, kind of off the court about, how, the game of basketball is bigger than basketball and how, you got to use this platform to, prepare you for life and how, one day it's going to be bigger than a ball bouncing and, a ball going in the hoop. So I think from, Span, I really took it more of like a growth, I was a young 18-year-old hopping into college. So, he taught me a lot in that sense. And then, you hear the tough news that he's not coming back. And you got, seniors who are getting ready for their last season. And, we meet McSloy and, none of us knew who he was. We knew he was like a star player at Kings Park, but, that's really all we knew. And then, looking at him the first day, meeting him, I had no idea that, that'd be a guy that would, realistically be the one who puts St. Joe's basketball on the map with his recruiting and, his tactics. But, McSloy's a great dude. I'm actually going to be playing golf with him this summer, so I'm looking forward to that. And he just got engaged, so
I was good. You stole my thunder. Obviously, you're prepared for this. I was going to ask you, especially about McSloy. I mean, are you going to be one of the best men at the wedding? Are you going to be invited to the wedding? I mean, obviously, have to ask you about that. Obviously, Coach probably had his biggest win so far, I would say, in terms of getting married to his beautiful fiance, their soon-to-be wife. I mean, obviously, both of you guys could even answer that, but I think that's Coach McSloy's biggest win of his career so far, by far, hands down, no?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
Brad, it took you a while to say yeah, Brad. You were like, wow.
I said yeah. I mean, don't get me in trouble, McSloy. Because listen, McSloy, obviously for me, before I give it back to Matt, McSloy was a huge mentor for me. Not only as a player, even though, like I said, I barely played minutes for him, but as a coach especially, I learned a lot. Like my practice plans for JV are very much similar to a McSloy's format and the way he did things because of how much he had an influence. And I took that season, my senior year to really, while I was injured, learn how to kind of coach and manage a practice because I kind of had to see it from another view. So McSloy had a huge impact, not only on, me and Matt as players, but me and Matt as coaches now because he really taught the game very well. He was a great guy. He was just a great mentor, a guy who his office door was always open. I talked to him about anything, and he always was open to talking about it. So as Matt's playing golf with him, I actually had a chance to play men's league with McSloy last year or the year before.
I think we spoke about it last year. I think he was right, and Billy Heenan was in that league also.
On the team, So listen, he's doing great. Obviously, he moved on to Drew, which he's doing a great job there as well. So, but I love McSloy. I'm looking forward to speaking with him and seeing him too. But Matt had more than 1 year with him, so he'll have more to say. But for me, having 1 year with McSloy was a huge impact, not only on my coaching ability, but my life too. He taught me a lot of life lessons.
Absolutely. No question about that. I mean, certainly McSloy brought a lot, I think, to the program in a short time he was here, really 2 seasons, 3 years. But what I think he brought to the program is that stability. And obviously, Coach Ewell is here, and I think he's continued a lot of the different things. And I think he's going to even get a chance to put his footprint on here because McSloy, in a way, didn't really get that chance. He comes in here late in 2019. Obviously, you guys are well aware of that. Then we have COVID. Nobody could recruit. Then we missed that full season. Okay, so we had this year, but you couldn't do anything, couldn't recruit, nothing. And then right before this season, Coach obviously goes to Drew, and certainly Coach has had a lot of success, and we love Coach here on Sportzwire. I still remember the day. It was like yesterday when Coach spoke with me on the phone and said he'd like to come on to the Then Sports Report, and I certainly obliged, and we certainly have become friends since. But I think Coach Ewell is a guy that I think is going to now get a chance to put his footprint on the program with Manchester and Errol Danian. Obviously, they've had a lot of experience here. Manchester's been here a while, but I mean, what about Coach Ewell, and what have you learned from him, Matt, in terms of just overall, just some of the things that he's taught you on the court, and obviously what you'll use, I'm sure, no doubt, with the Long Island Sound and elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, he's taught me so much. I mean, truth be told, like when McSloy left, I almost, didn't come back.
Well, we were all stunned. I got to be honest, we were all stunned. I think we saw Coach Gordiessa with the All-American Burger right before it. Everybody was like, we're all excited. We were talking about Xavier Allen, and we were talking about the team, how much we missed you guys talking about it. And then it was like, I think right after that we heard the news, and it was just like, it was pretty devastating. I won't lie. It was devastating to hear that he was not going to be here because you kind of felt like he was on his way to being another John Matejko here. Obviously, it's John Matejko and everybody else, and I kind of thought that McSloy, if he would have stayed here, would have been the man to take us to the NCAA tournament. And the only other person to do that here was John Matejka, who I believe is the greatest coach to ever coach here in any sport for St. Joseph's Long Island. Just my opinion for what he did. So I think we were all devastated, to be honest, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, and like I was kind of just like, like not satisfied, but like okay with what I did here in my time with him. And then, Yule asked just to sit down and talk to me, and I was like, why not? Give him a shot. We met one day, we talked for a few hours, and it kind of just changed my whole perspective in it. And I honestly, like, from the start, just believed in him and what he was saying. And there was a part of me that was just dying to finish that last season eligibility and go out there for one more shot at it. But he didn't really reinvent the wheel too much. The only thing we really switched up was playing man-to-man defense. And I knew that. I mean, to be totally honest with you, I wasn't sure if I was going to play too much because, when Sloy had me, I couldn't guard a chair. So, it was definitely something I had to work on. So I hit the gym, started training with my trainer, Ed Darcy, who's awesome over in Rocky Point. And then we got to work. And by the time I came in October, I still struggled a little bit early in the season, but started to figure out the pack line. And, there was games where I felt like I was guarding, teams – better offensive players and, kind of holding them to, under season averages or like.
Yeah, I remember we spoke about that on Sportswire, Brad, the role you played. I'm almost certain on some of the Friday shows, we spoke about the different defense you played. Yeah.
I'll put myself on Front Street right now. One of the things that I said early on was, how is this team, going to transition to man-to-man with some of their defensive issues? And I'll admit, Matt, and you know this, I was hard on Matt. I said, Matt Hirdt, is he going to be able to defend some of the team's best players? But as he said, he learned how to do that. It took maturity, but he did it, and he did a great job. Watching you play all season, Matt, defensively, I was really proud. As a former, you said you couldn't guard a chair. It was a rough time early on, but listen, you played some great defense this year, so I give you a lot of props.
No, and you guys definitely did. And to be nationally ranked, I mean, you guys were basically, I think, in the top 30 or 40, and at one point, I think top 30 in points allowed and defensive field goal percentage against. And Liam Shee, when he was in there, was in the top 40 in the nation in block shots per game. And you guys, certainly with McSloy, the foundation was there, but you guys were nationally ranked in terms of points per game allowed. I mean, it was very impressive defensively. I mean, I would argue to say that these were some of the best defensive teams we've ever had here in program history. I know we won big with Matejko, but those teams were totally different. They would put on a show. They would basically like, we're going to score 80, 90 points and blow you out of the building. Yeah. We won here these last 2 years, especially this year. The games we won, was because of our defense. We were nationally ranked defensively. That's how good this team was. And, I mean, you guys had to have talked about that in the locker room. I remember speaking with Coach off the air because we would speak quite a bit, Coach Yule. And I know Brad would speak with him also at times off the air. And that was something he was really proud of about this team, was the fact that how well you guys played defensively and being nationally ranked. And for you guys as a team, what did that mean?
Yeah, I mean, we had expectations as a team that we needed to meet every game. And, there was 9 expectations. And, when you do the math, if you follow at least 6 of those expectations, you win like 90% of the time. So, we really prided ourselves on getting stops and, forcing teams to miss shots and, taking care of business and grabbing the rebounds. And that was something, Yule preached every day. I mean, we would do defensive shell drill every single day, and we would go pass and cut. We would just go on the ball, and then we'd play live. And, getting those defensive reps every day really just puts you in the game. And, when you're able to guard it live in practice, it becomes a whole lot easier during the game. So, we just preach defense and how defense wins championships. And, I really think you'll see over the next year or two that defense does win championships and that, it works, especially in the Skyline Conference.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. Brad, you want to jump in? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask a follow-up question because you just talked about 3 different coaches that Matt had in 5 seasons. Well, I want to talk about like the 3 or 4 different positions you played in 5 seasons. You talk about, like you said, when you first came on the scene, I mean, you were running the point guard at one point for us, right? You're playing the 2, you're playing the 3. This past season, I see you guarding like 4s, bigger guys. Yeah. Like, how was that? And not only the coaching that we already talked about, but the adjustment of playing different positions. Obviously, that takes a lot of versatility. But how was that on the court for you as you went on through the years?
It's tough sometimes. It's tough when you play purchase and you're guarding a 5'7" guard. And you're guarding a 6'5" kid who has 40 pounds on you. But it's definitely an adjustment. But I will say it's a lot more fun guarding a big man than it is guarding a quick guard.
Hey, it depends on the one. Depends on the big man.
Yeah, it does depend on the big man. But I'd say, just being, open to doing whatever coach needed, and just offering anything. That's what I did every day.
Now, speaking of coaches, obviously the big news here that broke before we went on the air, we were, I guess, talking about this, maybe even joking about this off the air, is apparently that Cortland coach for the men's basketball team, Tom Spanbauer, has retired and he is no longer going to coach there. And he has been there at the program almost 30 years, 459 wins, several trips to the NCAA tournament, ECAC tournament. I mean, you guys done it all, nationally ranked, go deep into the NCAA tournament. I was asking, since Matt, you have no more eligibility, and certainly Brad is certainly doing the coaching tree, I had to ask because, this would be a great springboard for both of you guys. You're here live on Sportswire Radio. A lot of people tuned in all over the world and different places. I mean, even for you, Matt, first, I mean, what a way this could transition if you had some interest in that job at Cortland. Certainly, you have the resume now at the Long Island Sound. You have the resume as a decorated player here for our Golden Eagles. Some big wins in the Skyline Conference these last 2 years. I mean, would you have some interest in being, I don't know, the head coach there at Cortland? You want to put your hat in the ring there? I mean, certainly a lot of people would certainly be rooting for you. Think you might be an excellent candidate.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going to stick to my ninth and sixth grade AAU teams. I don't know if I could take the stress of college basketball, being a head coach on the sidelines. I think Brad would be a good candidate, though.
Potentially. I mean, listen, obviously.
He said potentially there. So Brad this time didn't dismiss me.
Hold on. Let me explain. I got this. All right. Listen, first of all, I'm not the guy to ever step on anyone's toes. And we all know that my best friend, or one of my best friends, Brendan Fitzpatrick, is an assistant there. He's been there for multiple seasons. And if there's anyone that deserves to get the promotion, it's him. Now, if he called me on the phone and said, Brad, I want you to be an assistant, then maybe I would have to consider, even though, like Matt said in our conversation before this, I don't want that cold weather. I'll tell you that. No.
I know. I will say that up there, yeah. You think it's bad?
I don't know about that. But to Matt's point, I think we both enjoy coaching the younger kids in the AAU scene. He's obviously doing a great job with Long Island Sound, which we'll get to in a second. But Matt, I gotta put you on the spot though, because we know that college maybe is a little step, but what about high school? What about Miller Place? Like you're a guy who loves Miller Place. Like you do a great job out there in Suffolk. What about a high school coaching job in the future?
I mean, I work in a high school right now, so I'm definitely interested in getting into one of the local high school basketball programs next year. Try and coach and help out. I'm actually coaching middle school track right now for my school.
Oh wow!
It's definitely cool. An adventure.
That's
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's certainly. I didn't expect that one here. So that's pretty wild. Middle school track. I got to give you a lot of credit on that. That's certainly definitely why we're honored to have on Matt Hirdt here for a little while longer. Of course, Matt is a legendary player for our SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball program, 6th all-time in three-pointers, 24th in school history and rebounds. Really one of those great rebounders that we had this past year with the likes of Xavier Allen, Spencer Malloy, Timmy, certainly Matt's brother last season, obviously Liam Sheehy when he was in the lineup, Ryan McNeely, a who's who of people, and also alongside us was the brute force Brad Weiss, who at one point was 25th. He's now 27th all-time in rebounds in school history. Also had some big moments for the program. He's also the head coach for our JV Plainview JFK basketball team for the basketball program for the boys side. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. And again, please follow our Golden Eagles on Instagram and Twitter, SJLI_MBBall. So Brad talked about it here, Matt. Obviously, the Long Island Sound, we've been following it for the past couple of years on Sportswire Radio. Ryan McNeely is also a counterpart of that. And I mean, talk about the Long Island Sound. And obviously, boy, Brad certainly knew the cue there. And
hey, listen, I hope Jesse's not watching, but I'm supporting Long Island Sound.
Well, Jesse might not want to come on with us now because you're putting on his rival shirt.
No, so he told me I was all right. Don't worry.
All right, if Jesse said you're okay, I'll give you that much. I'll give you a pass. But let's talk about that, Matt. Obviously, you've been doing this for the past couple of years during the off season. And I mean, talk about this, how it's helped you and sort of where you're going to go forward here with the rest of your career in the world of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, during COVID, me and my teammate, Ryan McNeely, we always talked about, like, at practices, coaching a team together. We just thought it would be fun. I always wanted to get into coaching one day. And his dad's obviously a legendary coach.
Yes. Oh man.
So we joked about it, and one of my neighbors reached out and asked. He's like, I don't want to coach my son's CYO team anymore. Would you be interested in picking him up? And I was like, sure. Like, do you mind if I bring Ryan along as my assistant? And he was like, definitely, of course. So we brought him to a park because everything was shut during COVID. We started at a Sound Beach court with like grass growing on the three. And it kind of took off. We were trying to think of a name for a while. We're kind of stuck on that. We knew we wanted it to be like Long Island something. We both live at Miller Place, Mount Sinai, right by the water. So we thought Long Island Sound was a good one. A funny story actually. When we were getting our logo drawn up, the guy thought originally we meant like sound like the music. So he drew like a music note on a basketball. So we were like, what is this? But it got fixed, and I think we have a pretty nice logo now. But yeah, we coach a lot of players in the Miller Place, Mount Sinai, Shoreham, Port Jeff Station, Longwood area. And we stay busy. It's tough, with college basketball being able to, balance that in an AAU program. But we have some really big plans, to take this thing off. And, now that I'm done with college basketball, I think we're going to be able to, start to grow it. And, Ryan's got 2 years left of eligibility. So when he's done, he'll be able to help out even more. And I think Long Island Sound's going to grow a whole lot on Long Island.
I have no doubt. I think it's going to go further past Long Island into some of the boroughs and elsewhere. So certainly very, very excited about that. And Brad is certainly supporting, even though he's with Level
I
Up.
got something to say, Tom.
I was going to ask. So go ahead, Brad. Jump in, Brad.
All right. First of all, Matt, I need a favor. All right. This shirt's a little small on me now. I need a new one. All right. That's number one. All right. Number two, I'll make a comment just to, butter Matt up a little bit. All right. We have scrimmaged on a couple occasions, Level Up in Long Island Sound. He's definitely got the best of me the first couple times. So his program is in a great spot. They have some really great teams. I'm extremely excited, by the way, to be competing in his tournament in the next month, May, that we're going to be in their tournament that they're running over in the town of Brookhaven. So they're running a great program. Matt, Ryan, obviously. So I'm looking forward to seeing the growth of it. And like I said, the growth of my shirt too, because it's a little small. It's probably my fault for, eating too much. But listen, I definitely need a bigger one. So that's my one request for you, Matt. But we are going to set up another scrimmage soon. We are going to be in the tournament. So I'm really proud of him with the program he's put together. And once again, it goes back to what I said about the shy guy early on, right, when he was at St. Joe's, to now a guy running his own program. It says a lot about how he's matured.
Absolutely. I want everybody to follow the Long Island Sound on Instagram as well. LI Sound Basketball. Please follow everything that the guys are doing. Also want to give a shout out to a guy tuned in here. Probably doesn't quite know what we're talking about, but he likes to check in on Facebook. That is Mr. Anthony Finkel, all the way from, I guess he's back in Brooklyn or he's in Florida. I lost count on where he might be, but he says, "What's up, Root? Missed you last Friday." Yep.
I'm in Florida tomorrow. So, Anthony Finkel, where are you at?
Yeah, I think he's in I forget where he is in Florida. It's Cape Coral, I think he's in, right? Cape Coral, Florida. Then I just saw somebody else I know from Brooklyn. A woman I've known for years just said she announced on Facebook she moved to Sarasota, Florida. And I was like, I didn't know about this. Everybody's going there, but we're glad that the Brute Force is going to come back. And Anthony Finkel, wherever he might be, certainly thank him for tuning in. And obviously, I got to ask real quick, Matt, obviously you guys have seen each other on the basketball court these days and the Sound and Level Up, and any funny wins you got or any funny moments over Brad you want to share now that we're here with that I would love to know.
I don't know. I don't think so.
All right. Well, I wanted to ask.
Right on the spot like that. I also don't think I have any, too funny.
All right.
That's some good memories though.
All right. Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right. That's fair. Well, speaking of coaches who did some stuff also at the younger levels, a guy we had, and we're supposed to actually have him on last week to kind of get this trio of shows going on here for Golden Eagles basketball coverage, sort of here. Obviously, he was with the program for a couple years, but now is over at Malloy. There's Jason Gordieso, obviously. Would love to know maybe some thoughts you had from Coach G and anything else. Obviously, all kidding aside, he is one of our favorites on Sportswire. In fact, I go back with him to the days when he was an assistant coach over at CCNY. And I think in a lot of ways, he was the guy kind of responsible for Xavier Allen coming here to the program. That was a guy that he had certainly his eyes on for quite a while. I remember Xavier's name coming up during COVID here about coming to the Golden Eagles. And anything you want to share about Coach Gordieso, what you learned from him, or anything funny you might want to share about Coach Gordieso was a bonus point, because we know that he will listen to this and he will eventually make his way back to Sportswire Radio for a rebuttal.
Nah, I mean, Coach G was awesome. One of the things he introduced to us was player development sessions, which were new to our program. Kind of just getting guys in the gym for extra reps, extra shots. And, it wasn't something that was taken lightly. He would stay after hours, something he wasn't necessarily getting paid to do, making sure guys get those extra reps up. So, he definitely leaded, in a role that most assistant coaches might necessarily not do, after hours of a practice when the head coach walks out. But he's also, a great guy, really funny person. He'd always joke with us, It's kind of that like assistant coach who, would always make sure that like the mood and the team morale was going well. Gordon also has a very good impression of Coach G. So,
we're going to definitely ask him about that next week on the show. I can promise you, because
there's gotta be more than one impersonation next week.
Yeah,
I think there better be. Listen, when Gordon Scheuer comes on here, I want impersonations of everybody at the program. I want Andrew Capitelli, even if he can do an impersonation of him, because I know Andrew Capitelli's probably on a beach somewhere right now, so with a drink in his hand. So I mean, that's an inside their baseball point there. But going to plead the fifth on the rest of that. But certainly, when it comes to Gordon, I want as many impersonations as possible when it comes to Gordon Scheuer.
Could have a whole show just of impersonations, like a 1-hour special.
Well, we spoke with Gordon. We're in a chat with him like you, and I think we're going to have Gordon on during the season as well. So I think one of the things I want to do going forward is maybe have some pre or post game shows on certain games. Certain, you can't do it every game, but obviously the games that a lot that we'll definitely do that here for sure. And I did want to ask you, Matt, in kind of a important moment for your career, because we've talked about it. I mean, does it mean anything to you to be 6th all time in 3-pointers, 24th in rebounds? I thought that was kind of a pretty cool feat to actually be in the school's record books there for not one but 2 categories. Does that mean anything to you at all, or talk to me about that?
I mean, it's definitely cool seeing your name there, for those milestones. I mean, ultimately, I would have rather had my name next to like a NCAA tournament berth, but I think the biggest thing is like, I think I'll be able to leave knowing that I made an impact on the program, and that, when the guys make the tournament in a year or two, that, a big part of it was because of, the leadership and the foundation, guys like me, Brad, Kevin, Gordon, laid down. But yeah, I'm not really a big numbers guy, so never really cared. Scored.
Well, some people are. Listen, I ask wrestlers this question sometimes, and some of the wrestlers will go, "Yeah, well, some of them will give me a whole rant on what it means to them. Others are like, well, it's about kind of like you. Well, if I did good and I made people happy, or if I helped the other people around me, that's fine as well." And I had to get this in because obviously we've had him on also a couple of times, and I know Brad will have something to say. That is Billy Heenan. Billy, I think, was important also in a way because he played here. He's also a part of the last team before you guys had any real meaningful success, especially deep in the Skyline tournament. And I know Billy has meant a lot to basketball on the line. You mentioned Amityville, and obviously he's big from that area. Obviously with Olivier Laurent, Andy Laurent, certainly Brad played with Andy Laurent. Andy had a decorated career. The Laurent brothers are legendary. I've had Olivier on, I think, 3 or 4 times on Sportswire in the past. And what was it like in learning from Coach Heenan, especially a guy that played here and kind of was like you, an intangible guy, leader, had some success? And talk to me about Coach Heenan and how important he was to you on and off the court.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Heenan's a great dude. He's such a positive guy. Obviously last year he was our volunteer assistant, so, he gave up so much of his time, for us,
and especially from Bengals coverage as well, because we know he's a big. Did he force you guys as a bonus to all be Bengals fans or what?
No, he got. The funny thing is, I'm pretty sure Yule's a Bengal fan too now.
Wow, we gotta ask him about that when he comes on. Who would have guessed that, Brad? Who would have guessed that Yule is a Bengals fan?
Well, who would have guessed that Matt Hirdt's a Patriots fan? But I had to find that out.
But you know what though? We'll get to that in a minute. Let him finish on Heenan.
Yeah, but I mean, he always challenged us. He was such a positive, light on the bench, and he provided so much energy. I think that was the biggest trade he offered. Energy in practice, energy in games on the bench after someone made a big shot. He always had your back, and my senior year, I went through like a little bit of a shooting slump midway through the season, and he would text me, and we'd meet at the school at 7 a.m. and we get shots up for an hour each morning before I went into student teaching. So for him to do that as a volunteer coach, that speaks volumes. And now, I'm really happy he's on the ESM coaching staff. And I know he had a really young team, but I'm pretty sure they had a pretty good season and they got a bright future there. So they're definitely in the right hands with Gordon's dad and Coach Heenan.
And Brad, obviously, we spoke about what Billy meant to you coming to the school. Obviously, you watched Billy a lot on that 15 team, the last team that had meaningful success in the Skyline tournament. I mean, anything you want to add on Billy aside from his Cincinnati Bengals coverage for his Same Old Stripes podcast?
No, I mean, like you said, Tom, I mean, Billy was a very instrumental part of me going to St. Joe's. Obviously at the time I had a lot of interest from them, but Billy was the guy who I came in and kind of encouraged me to come and saw my abilities and what I could do. And I went to a few of their open gyms kind of before I went there, and he was very much supportive of me, saying, listen, you got to come. So Billy is great. I love him just from players, the way he played. I always enjoyed watching him. Also, the way that he led. We talk about leadership all show. He leads in a great fashion. He's a guy who you could really look up to. And just like Matt, he's now also a rival of mine on the court.
That's why I wanted to bring him up.
Yeah, because he was coaching Lightning. Now he's coaching Empire. So he just got a little closer in rivalry. Rivalry with Empire and level up. But listen, he's a great guy. I've always enjoyed him. He also, ironically, refs some of my men's league games.
Yeah, we spoke about that with him. I thought that was so fascinating when we had Heenan on and he talked about learning to be a referee. I just thought that was so fascinating when we had him on.
Yeah, we've actually had some really good conversations about, St. Joe's and also everything that's going on the court while he's reffing on playing. So listen, Billy's a great guy. He could do it all. He's also a great family man. He's got a great family. So I love Billy. I really hope to see him again soon and hopefully have him on the show because he's a great guy. He's had an impact on both of our lives, me and Matt. So Billy's, again, just a true professional in everything he does.
Absolutely. Billy is definitely one of our favorites on Sportswire, and certainly Billy obviously is somebody that has left an indelible impact, I think, on the program, and certainly very close to the Laurent brothers, who I think certainly also, while they didn't play with each other, had probably the most impactful career brother in the school's history. But, Brad did touch upon it before I get to some closing thoughts here and ask you one or two things about maybe playing in the postseason, Matt. But you are a New England sports fan. You have an interesting background because you're an Islanders fan in hockey, which obviously I was an Islanders season ticket holder for a while, and I love the Islanders. But you're also a Boston Celtics and a New England Patriots fan. So certainly you run the gauntlet here, I guess. You might even want to say, I guess it's kind of connected to the Long Island Sound, right? Because Connecticut goes through Massachusetts, Long Island, Connecticut right across from each other. But I mean, you got to talk about what got you into the Celtics and Patriots. What do you think about the Patriots offseason? And also, where does this Celtics team go from here when it comes to the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty weird that I'm a New York Met, Islander, Celtics, Patriot fan. I get made fun of a lot for it.
Yeah, it's different. I got to say it's different.
I was one of those guys that did that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I always love watching football on TV. I was a Patriot fan since I was a little kid. We used to travel to, Boston on vacation a lot. Okay. Quincy Market, there's so many different things to buy there.
I heard that, sure.
I wasn't big into baseball yet, so I had a nice little Patriot stuffed animal as a kid. Actually did my second grade biography project. Most kids shows like Abe Lincoln, presidents. I did mine on Randy Moss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Patriots jersey. So definitely stems back to the childhood and, stuck with them. Hoping for a good season, even though the AFC is probably going to be stacked this year.
Yeah.
But I mean, personally, I don't think the Jets are going to get Aaron Rodgers, so I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, well, Brad, that's how you run. I mean, you want to bet, Brad?
I think he's going to retire and call it quits.
No, he's coming. He's coming to the Jets. All right. All right. Listen, let's get our sports report hat on right now. Let me say something. All right. Because listen, he's coming to the Jets. All right. We're making this happen. Everybody's motivated to do it. Both sides are motivated. You heard both the GM on the Green Bay side and the GM on the Jets side saying they're working it out. So he's coming, Matt. And you know what? I've had enough torture in my life from the damn Patriots. Matt talked enough junk while I was at St. Joe's about the Patriots. Now it's the Jets sucked. So listen, it's about time that we can be better than the Patriots. And even though we still can't beat them for damn sake, but this year hopefully we'll change that.
And the way the Jets lost this year in Foxborough was like, I mean, you couldn't make that up. Losing on a punt. I mean, I think we'll never see that again. I mean, that was one of the most bizarre losses. And Matt, I'll make you feel good here. As a kid, now though I'm not a Patriots fan, one of the things I did get as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, I actually got a New England Patriots jacket. I got a New England Patriots jacket for Christmas one year. I don't know why I got a New England Patriots jacket, but I do remember wearing it. And in fact, I remember wearing it as a little kid when Drew Bledsoe was the quarterback, right before Tom Brady took over. I think it was literally like the year or two right before Tom Brady becomes the quarterback. So that's my one memory of having a New England Patriots jacket. It was a warm jacket, by the way. So I have to say, I'll say that much here. And obviously, you're a Celtics fan as well. And you confident on the Celtics or what?
Yeah, I mean, Jason Tatum's struggling right now, but I think he'll find it come playoff time. I'm still definitely scared of the Warriors. I feel like the Warriors are going to piece it together right in time.
They just have to get in. See, the problem is the NBA now, Brad's talked about this. You just have to, if you're one of these teams, you just have to get in the playoffs. And then these records mean nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like, the sad thing is, like, the Sacramento Kings are probably going to lose in the first or second round, despite the season they're having. It's just the way the playoffs work. I mean, especially with, like, this load management stuff and all these players resting up. Like, a team like the Warriors, like you said, they just got to get healthy and get in. And you already know they're all going to show up and probably bowl out.
Now, Matt, I have to ask you a question so the brute force can come in because, one of the other things we're known for here is this thing called Dolan time here. And we talk about the New York Knicks, and Brad sometimes gets a heart attack. Not often, but once in a while, he's New York stand up. And, since Brad's here, maybe you want to get his blood pressure up a little bit. I mean, what do you make of the New York Knicks these days? And certainly their interesting predicament that they're in. They win yesterday, but they beat the Rockets. I mean, come on, anybody could beat them at this point. But I mean, any thoughts on Brad and his Dolan time segment and his beloved New York Knicks?
I mean, it's probably frustrating at times being a Knicks fan, but I will say if when the Knicks are a good basketball team, New York is a good place to be in. So
hasn't been often though. Hasn't been often the last 20 years.
It hasn't, but I mean,
I was going to say at times when.
10 years ago, that one team. We got one team, 2013. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. I was in high school. So, I mean,
not one.
Matt's giving the good answer, the one you should give. All right, but we all know. Listen, I hope you enjoy Dolan time, by the way, Matt. Since you guys watched the show, I'm sure you've seen me get heated on the show. I had an epic rant the other day. But the New York Knicks are in trouble. Let's just say it. All right, the New York Knicks are in trouble. They're going home early. All right, Julius Randle's worried more about the referees than playing the basketball game. We're done. All right, we're in big trouble, the New York Knicks. So, but I'll say this, all right, even though I'm not a fan of the Celtics at all, Paul Pierce is my most hated player of all time. Okay, I still hate the Celtics, but my assistant coach at Plainview is a Celtics fan. So, we kind of work off each other there. But I do think the Celtics are going to get back to the finals this year. I'm going to say that. I think they are. They're going to do it.
I would certainly bet on them. I tell you what, they're one of the teams I think, but obviously everybody's going to talk about Milwaukee. But I mean, Boston might actually have a little bit of a deeper team, and obviously playoffs are coming up here. I think we're about 2.5 weeks until the play-in. So I think it's about the 15th to the 16th, I think is when the play-in round starts. So looking forward to that and plus much, much more. But I don't want to take too much of your time, Matt. So I want to ask you a couple thoughts. And we'll let Brad ask you a question because I know Brad's dying to do something here. But I mean, I have to ask you about getting into the Skyline playoffs and in the two games. I know we didn't win the games. I'm not going to obviously deliberate and talk about why we won, why we lost. Obviously, they're well documented. Guys know it. But I mean, just talk to me about the experience, though, of being in the Skyline playoffs and being there, being able to be in those buildings, especially Manhattanville and Yeshiva, and the program gets to taste a little bit of success. And you guys were right there in both of those games. Could have arguably win both of them, especially the Yeshiva game, Manhattanville game. We're right there. I think we were down by 1 with 2 minutes left or something like that. Lose by 4, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, talk to me about being in the playoffs, feeling that, at least getting to taste a couple of those playoff appearances here and what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, I'll start by saying Manhattanville, in my opinion, was the toughest place to play in the Skyline. Um,
Really?
it's a dark gym.
It's a weird looking gym on the screen. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean
It's
the
weird.
bleachers are super tight to the court. And, in a playoff game, that thing's packed out. You can't stand in room only. It gets loud in there because they got like the elevated, stands, and they got the stands on the bottom. And they have some pretty good student support there, so it definitely packs out in there. And I mean, our first playoff game as a team, you look at like our starting lineup. You had 5 guys that never played in a playoff basketball game before, and you're going up against a Manhattanville team with 4 seniors and a junior, with Latito, who won Player of the Year
Yep.
this year. And we were in the game. We lost by I don't even remember how much, but
Well, it was like 4. I think it was 4, if I'm not mistaken. You guys were
yeah,
there with 2 minutes left for. I
yeah,
think we're down 1. I think 1 or 2. It was basically a 1 possession game, and I think you guys were tied with like 6 minutes left, if I recall correctly, or something like
yeah.
that.
So I mean, you're in that game, and then that leads into next season, and you kind of playing with a little chip on your shoulder, and there's all these expectations, and a few things don't go your way, and you thought you were going to have a home playoff game, and you have to go on the road. And I mean, the way the Skyline worked this year, I mean, any draw was a tough draw, basically. I mean, you had a lot of teams show out who really weren't expected to show out, like a team like Maritime, who another one where you lose at the
Yeah, it was
buzzer.
Maritime, Merchant Marine. These teams, we didn't know what to make of them, and
Yeah.
and they had success. And I mean,
Yeah, and then I mean, you hop on the road to Yeshiva, which is a tough place to play. But I mean, to tell you the truth, we were confident we'd like that matchup.
we won there in the regular season the last 2 times there. I mean, we
Yeah,
were great at Max Stern. We spoke about it at the beginning of the show.
yeah. I mean, we're up 8 at halftime. Everything's going well, and they kind of punched us really hard in the face at halftime, and it was kind of tough to recover from. And we tied the game back up, and it just felt like we were always 1 or 2 possessions behind, and ultimately things didn't go our way. But I think that moment, how the guys felt, I think that's going to motivate them for next season. And I think you're going to definitely see a home playoff game next year.
And before I get to Brad, I mean, I think that's the thing I'm going to take away with this team was that we had the unfortunate luck. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm not trying to be a homer here, but to win 22 games in the Skyline Conference and to not have a home playoff game, I mean, that's tough. I mean, we won 22 games these last 2. We were 22-10 in the Skyline Conference, and we didn't have a home playoff game.
Yeah.
You're in any other conference, you win 12, you win 10 games, you get in a home playoff game. And then, you know what? You win that game and you go in, and you know what? Anybody's ball game. But we didn't have that luck, unfortunately. And I mean, anything you want to touch upon, Brad? I know you did play in the postseason once, but Matt got in there twice, and I know you're chomping at the bit. So go ahead.
Oh, I got a few questions for Matt before we get out of here. But just to put on your point on the playoff games, I mean, I obviously had one experience at Old Westbury, like you said, in 2017. It's a great environment. It's always fun to get into that ruckus crowd and motivation. It's obviously everybody has pressure because it's a playoff game. But in my playoff games as well as Matt, we came in as the quote unquote underdog because the other team was favored. You were at their court. So there's part of you that's like, yeah, like bring on that pressure. Like this is our time. And listen, it's a lot of fun to be in those environments. In high school, I had the pleasure of winning a playoff game, so I know how that feels. But in college, listen, it's a very tough task to go on the road, like Matt said, to a Manhattanville, Yeshiva, for me, Old Westbury, and you go and get a win against some very quality teams in the Skyline Conference, who by that point, by the way, know you because they've seen you a few times, right? They've prepared. They have their home court.
No, we played Yeshiva, I think, right 2.5 weeks prior, if I'm not mistaken, right? About 2.5 weeks prior at Danzig.
Listen, it's one of those things, too, where you try to put together a plan, but both teams know each other so well, it's hard to plan. It's hard to even plan for the other because you just know what, at that point what you're going to do. But listen, they competed in the playoffs. I was, we obviously did our pregame show for the Yeshiva game, and we were enjoying the game and rooting you guys on hard. So, we were just proud of you guys and what you did, even though, obviously, as Matt said earlier in the show, the expectation now is we want more. And this year, you guys wanted more. And I think that's what our program is going to do, and we're really excited about that. But I got a few questions, Matt. I got a few questions. And Some of them are way off topic, but it's okay because I got to put you on the spot. All right, you're on the sports report. You're here. All right, so listen. Question number one. All right, you got to tell Tom. You got to tell the viewers. Put me on the spot. Be as harsh as you want. How was I as a teammate? All right, there's a lot of people here that want to know from somebody else. Like,
wow,
how I was as a teammate.
Wow.
So talk about that. In your experience playing with me.
Putting me on the spot here.
We want to come back, Brad.
He's coming back. Don't worry.
Honestly, like a lot of you guys just like coming in my freshman year, just like intimidated me, honestly, because I was so like shy and stuff. So like, I definitely was just like, I gotta stay away from you at first. Like that's kind of how I felt about everyone except for Gino, who was so close. Even Frank, I tried to stay away from because he was insane. But as I started to get to know you, I came to see that you're a great guy, great leader. I think we had some one-on-one battles in practice where you exposed me a little bit in the paint. Yeah, I never really got my chance, but I think I'd be ready for it now.
Oh, you would be ready, 100%. I would put my money on Matt Hirdt right now if I were you or anybody. But all right, now next question, and this one I've got the money out already. All right, next one. All right, listen, I gotta ask this question. I've mentioned it to Tom before on this show as a joke, but I gotta know if this is still happening. Number one, are you still eating potato chips with a spoon? And number two,
we did talk about that once. I do remember that. Yes.
Still putting the milk in before the cereal. This is what I need to know right now.
We actually debated this on one show on Closing Thoughts. Yes, that I remember. That was last year.
I know what's going on with these eating habits.
So the whole milk in the cereal, I still pour the milk first. So I have the right amount of milk in there. It's pretty weird, but I still do it. The whole chip thing, though, I do start eating chips with my hands now. That was more of a high school thing where I'd crush it up. It's actually a pretty good trick. Crush it up in the bag. Get a spoon from the cafeteria, and then I just eat it like I was eating, kept my hands clean.
As somebody who came up in Brooklyn, right? Hard scrabbled Brooklyn. Yeah. If I would have been caught dead with chips, maybe on Long Island it works, but if I would have been caught dead with chips, eating them with a spoon, I probably would have had the spoon shoved down my throat. I'm just saying. That's all I could say. But I'm glad it worked for you.
I had to bring it up because, that was one of the most shocking things I've ever heard in my life.
I thought the milk with cereal was interesting. I thought that was interesting.
You're forgetting the muffin one.
Oh, no. All right, so talk about it then, Matt.
We didn't do the muffin one. What's the muffin one?
I only eat the bottom of muffins.
Oh, that's right. I remember this. Oh, man.
Yeah. Wait. How do you eat the bottom only of a muffin?
It's the best part of the muffin. It offers the most. So I would eat we'd get bagels on Sunday. I'd eat the bottom. Timmy would have the top. It's like teamwork.
Oh man!
Well, you guys certainly do it different on Long Island. I'm glad it worked for us because
don't say that, Tom. I live on Long Island too. I don't believe in
that.
Yeah, but you live in Nassau. Nassau is like almost like an outpost. Where you live is like a sort of outpost of New York City. He's in Suffolk, so it's a little different where he lives. Maybe that's what it is.
Different. I've been out there, so I understand. But listen, when I was
you're actually where almost what Intimans was before, right? Aren't you like near past Intimans? That's where he is.
Yeah,
that's still different out there. It's different.
Yeah, different world.
Well, listen, when I heard this stuff, Tom, I remember it vividly. He was talking about it in the training room. By the way, if you've noticed, a lot of the crazy stuff goes on in the training room.
Well, I know that because we have a lot of wrestlers, and they talk about the same thing. They hold I think it's called wrestlers' court. Guys will actually be in the locker room, and they'll hold court. So they'll be like what you guys do, probably the same thing in the locker room.
I remember Matt talking about it in the training room while he was in having some of his first experiences in the ice bath, which was a scene, by the way. But I know he got used to it just like me. But that was just, to me, like, I've never heard that. The milk thing I wasn't really fond of, but I can understand. But the chips.
Yeah, same here. The milk, I kind of, in a way, understand that one.
Today, I actually had a muffin top for breakfast. So I can't believe how you can't have the top. It's like, to me, that's the best part. And I hear the same nonsense about the pizza. For anyone who says the crust is the best part, it's the pizza. Come on, not the crust. You got to eat the pizza.
Well, actually, that's where I'm going to disagree with you. If he eats the crust The crust is actually, in some ways, the best part. I actually have to say.
I have some friends that eat the crust first, and that's
Well, that I wouldn't
that's
do,
just
but I
it.
can that I wouldn't do.
All
But
right.
obviously, one of our backers on the show is a guy, Jeff Todd, who he's kind of the guy behind Lucia Pizza in Brooklyn, and they have the crust. They told me to make a certain crust. There's a certain, like, I guess you have to keep the dough for a day or something like that. So there is the crust I could get. But go ahead, Brad. Further continue,
Yeah,
because I don't want to
last
talk anymore
one, I
about food.
promise, last one, all right? Because you mentioned his New England teams, but obviously we all know he's a New York Mets fan. And since I'm going to Miami for opening day, I got to get Matt's thoughts because me and Matt have been to a Met game together. He's a big
I
Mets
can
fan.
see that in the past. Yes.
Yeah. So Matt, you right now got to talk to me, all right? Because I was accused, by the way, of crazy things this past Friday.
Clip tomorrow coming out with that.
Right,
Clip tomorrow coming out.
But listen, what do you think about the Mets right now, and what do you think how the season's going to go?
I mean, I have some pretty high expectations. I'm hoping we win the World Series this year, but we got to see how it plays out. I really think Brett Batty's going to have a big season. I think he's got a lot of potential. I'm excited to see Verlander pitch for us. Obviously, with the news that Edwin Diaz is like the most Met thing ever. But I think we got the right leader, and I think Steve Cohen being our owner definitely helps. I saw you post the other day in your story about like the college tickets, and I know he's doing a lot to the ballpark. So I'm definitely going to be going to a lot of games, and I got some high expectations. But at the end of the day, I'm ready for my heart to be broken, and maybe the Mets will Met.
He's honest, Tom. At least he's honest.
Well, I mean, that kind of matches how I feel about the Mets, because I feel like my heart has been broken my entire life as being a Mets fan. Frankly, as a Met and Islander fan, I mean, the Mets have had maybe more tragedy than the Islanders because the Islanders have only had limited sprinkles of success. But I mean, with the Mets, that kind of matches, Brad, what I feel about the Mets pretty much since I've been a Mets fan. So, I mean, he's pretty much dead on about the Mets. I mean, Verlander should be good. Yeah, Scherzer, Verlander together. Okay, fine. I think the lineup should be good. Catcher to me is kind of the weak spot in the lineup, probably most likely. But I like Lindor, Alonso together. Marte healthy should be good. McNeil lineup should be fine. And the bonus part, which I can't believe you didn't mention, we get to see Kate Upton, right? 30 times a year at Citi Field. I mean, that should be good, right? I mean, that's off the topic part. I mean, I'm not complaining about that part. I mean, I still have the Sports Illustrated with her, actually. Still, I still have it. So certainly, Mr. Verlander went above his weight class, but certainly we'll look forward to the season. Smiling about that. And I won't ask you about the Islanders because I think the Islanders are pretty much most likely one and done, no matter where they end up in the postseason. But they've had an okay season. They've played better of late, but you have Barzell hurt. I mean, that's kind of been the Achilles heel offensively. Power play can't do anything. But Sorokin's had a great season. So I think, any different thought on the Islanders real quick before I get to one or two more questions for you? I know you're a busy man.
Not really. I mean, honestly, can't say I'm like the biggest Islanders fan. I definitely, would prefer them over the Rangers. But
all right, yeah, that kind of. That's why I wanted to keep that brief. That's exactly why I wanted to keep that brief. Yeah. All right, so you know what? We've definitely run the gauntlet here and all these different things, and I want to ask you then this kind of last question before I get to closing thoughts. And I could ask you, I know, like 19 more questions. I realize I'm sure Brad's got 20 more questions he wants to throw out there, but I want to be respectful of your time, your family's time, everybody else. But was there one or two moments that stood out most in your career at SJLI?
Yeah, I'll go a serious moment and a funny moment. For the serious moment, I think it was kind of the moment, honestly, like when the buzzer rang against Yeshiva this year. When the season ended, obviously I was like really upset, but I think, when the buzzer rang, like I kind of saw like in a flash, like everything that I did at the school, in the 5 years. Like I have a story that, honestly, most people don't get to say that they had, like you mentioned, playing for 3 different coaches, winning 5 games in a season, and then, doing all these firsts. Like the first, my senior year, we had like, this is the first time we did this in this amount of years. This is the first time we did that. So, kind of slowly putting the program back on the map. So, I kind of felt like in a kind of selfish sense, like I was a big part of that, getting us there. So that's just, honestly, like as sad as I was, it kind of felt good, like knowing that's where I'm leaving the program. And then a funny moment, definitely played with some funny guys over the years, but honestly, like, so I'm sure you remember the first time we played Yeshiva on the road when we upset them. Um,
Yes.
right before Gordon was shooting those free throws at the end to seal the game, it was like it was a one possession game. It was like I think we were up one as Gordon's going to the free throw line, and you could be thinking about anything in the whole entire game. And Jake comes up to me and he's like, what do you think coach is getting us after the game? And like there's like 2 seconds left in the game, and Jake's worried about what coach is getting us for food after the game. So that was kind of the teammates I was surrounded with at times, but that's definitely a funny memory on the court. Is Jake being more worried about what we're getting for food than closing out the game against the number 4 team in the country.
So what'd you guys get after the game?
I think we got Texas chicken and burgers back on Long Island, which was disgusting.
Yeah, Texas chicken and burgers. I wouldn't have.
It was the only thing that was open. We
Well,
got back.
I know. That's actually close to where I live. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's the second story I've heard unexpectedly about a player and coach with food. We had on, I don't know if you know him, Corey Jacks, who was the head coach of the Five-Town Sound women's basketball team, actually was recruited to play at SJLI. I think right just before you went to SJLI, Brad, and he was speaking about a player, Sydney Mountain, and actually she was talking during the game with the coach, and coach is thinking, all right, she's going to talk about a play or whatever. She was talking about, she wanted to remind coach that she was owed a meal, and the meal turned out to be Chick-fil-A. So sometimes you guys definitely have some interesting stories, I guess, on the court about food. And yours with Jake was certainly just as interesting as Sydney Mountain's story with Coach Jacks. But I also have to throw one more that I think should point out: 27 points. Last game of the regular season last year, your career high against Mount St. Vincent. I think that was probably the best game offensively you ever played here at SJLI. And you got one thought on that or two, I would have to think, no?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was a pretty frustrating game at halftime. If you check the box score.
I remember that. Yeah, you exploded in the second half, right? Would that recall correctly in that game? I think, right? You scored like 14 points in a row or something like that. Was that what I think? So it doubled 10 points in a row or something like that.
Yeah, I only had 3 points at halftime, so I scored. I think it was like 24 of like the 28 points in the second half.
You scored almost like all of our points in that game, if I recall correctly. That was a Saturday afternoon game, if I recall correctly. I think.
Yeah, right before playoffs. So it was a game that really didn't mean anything for either of our teams, for Vincent's or us. We were kind of locked in at our seeds, but it's a game that you want to win with some momentum going into the playoffs. And it's kind of just one of those days where the ball was just leaving my hand, and I kind of knew it was going to go in. So
yeah, I think I remember it now. I remember it very well. I think I had it correct. Saturday afternoon game. We struggled in the first half. Then all of a sudden, in the middle of the second half, you just went out and won the game for us. And I think I remember saying, maybe on the air during our preview of the team, you basically, that's maybe where you became Money Matt Hirdt. I mean, that's kind of where we got the nickname from. I mean, that was kind of that game. And I mean, do you like being called Money Matt Hirdt? I mean, we've got some nicknames for the guys. I mean, obviously, Ryan McNeely's got the flow. Jake Gordiello has his flow. Liam the Rejector, Sheehy. I mean, obviously, Spencer Malloy is kind of a walk tall and carry a big stick type guy, and Xavier Allen's the X-Man. But your Money Matt Hirdt. I mean, certainly maybe that doesn't ring as well as the brute forces, but I think your name's more important.
No, I definitely like the Money Matt Hirdt, but the brute force definitely sticks a little better.
It does stick. It does ring. I have to say, it's one of those names. I have to say, it fits him perfectly to a T. It actually is like one of those names. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. He looks like a brute force. He's like, in fact, one of our friends, Steve Saperstein, always says the brute force, and he says, the brute force. He looks so brute. I mean, and we had on during our preview show, Danny Burns, a guy who played for Brooklyn College, the only team in the history of CUNY all sports to play in the Final Four. He didn't even know Brad's first name, kept calling him the brute force because he watches our shows, and all he hears is the brute force. So he was like, it was funny on the street. What's your name again is what he said.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of guys who I went to school with who call me the brute force and don't know my name. So that's
all right. Well, I mean, Danny Burns gets a pass. He's a Hall of Famer. So, I mean, that's different. The Hall of Famer says that you ain't going to correct him. But obviously, we have certainly run the gauntlet with Mr. Money Matt Hirdt. He has had a decorated career. He's had a decorated appearance here on Sportswire Radio. And Obviously, I want to give the closing thoughts here in the floor to both you guys. I'm going first with you, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss. Obviously, you know the drill by now. Anything you want to say to any boosters, fans, team, coaches, anybody else that's listening and watching to this, and any social media you want to plug, and looking forward to doing this next week with you with Mr. Gordon Shore, and we'll see how he holds up compared to Money Matt Hirdt.
Yeah. So, Matt, thanks again for coming on. It's been a long time overdue. We've been looking forward to having you on the show. So thanks for coming on. I hope I did my best with the highlight video and all the different things I tried to do to hype this up. But ultimately, Matt being on the show hypes itself up. So thank you for coming on. We enjoyed your time today. Of course, you guys know you can follow me at BWeiss20, at Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram, at Brad Weiss20 on Twitter, and Bradley Weiss on Facebook. With that being said, St. Joe's, as I'll say one more time, is in a great spot. And that's really because of what the coaching staffs have done there, what type of players they brought in, but also a guy like Matt Hirdt, who's kind of been through it all, kind of been through, like I said, from the doom days, right, all the way up right now to now the success and now the future of this program. And he's going to remember that when he sees this team continue to get better over the years. He's going to say, yeah, well, I was there when it started, and I'm the one that kind of helped it go forward. And you should selfishly say that, Matt. I know he is like the most unselfish person ever because he's not going to say anything about himself, but he really should, and I'll make sure he does. So you should be proud of what you did there. You went from, again, a really bad 5-win team with yours truly to a team that was in the playoffs for 2 years and did a great job. Like Tom said, 22 wins in 2 seasons is terrific. With that being said, even though I am a proud level up coach, if you're in Suffolk County, you're out there in Miller Place, you're out there in Patchogue, you're out there in Port Jeff, you got to join Long Island Sound. I mean, they're running a fantastic program. If it wasn't for me being so far away, I would have considered joining because Matt actually asked me to for when he first started it. So, which I give a lot of credit to him for. That means a lot. So, Long Island Sound, follow them on social media. Get one of these shirts because they do a great job. It's a great logo, fantastic. Okay, so I really look forward to getting a bigger shirt, and I always like to wear this as well. So I am excited. We are going to scrimmage soon. I'll be sure to send some footage to you, Tom Bryce. All right, we are going to mix in tournaments. A few tournaments we overlap, so we will see each other a few other times. So I'm really excited for that. I'm excited for what Matt's going to do in the future as well, because again, it's sort of me feeling like the old guy now, Tom, where like I'm getting older and Matt's all of a sudden on our show and all of a sudden getting a coach at a high school. It's like I remember when the kid first walked in the door. So it is quite crazy, but congratulations to you, Matt, on a fantastic career. 5 seasons. So the last thing I'll say is this, because Tom had to bust my chops like 5 times. All right. Matt did pass me in rebounding. All right. But he had 5 seasons to do it. All right. I had 3. So I want to make sure that's clear, all right, before Tom keeps busting my chops about it. So thank you again, Matt.
Malloy broke you down in 2, by the way. Malloy did it in 2.
I know, but again, we don't talk about that. But anyway, Matt, thank you for coming on the show. Say hello to your parents, your family. I love them. Looking forward to seeing them soon as well. And looking forward to seeing you, my friend, on the court real soon.
Definitely. Amen to all that. Everybody follow Brad Weiss, Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram, BWeiss20 on Instagram, Brad Weiss20 on Twitter, Bradley Weiss on Facebook, and Ryan McNeely just followed me on Twitter. So Ryan McNeely is now on Twitter. So obviously he liked what he heard. So I'm sure the rest of the guys did as well. And Matt, obviously this has been a real honor to have somebody like you, an active, very successful college basketball player, to a team that we've followed here and obviously big fans of. And I got to be honest, this was definitely a bucket list appearance to have you on, and been a little sad actually the last month or so that we've kind of haven't got a chance to watch you guys on the court. I always get kind of sad at this time of year because we always love D3 basketball on Sportswire. I've had the honor to cover it the past 4 years, and I know everyone's talking about March Madness currently, but I just love watching the competition of all our D3 players and even our USCAA players. Obviously, our friends at Five Towns have been so gracious to support us over the years, but obviously I really am counting down in my head to October the 15th when everybody can get back together. Obviously, we'll have some more coverage of the program with Gordon next week, and Gordy Yesso and some others will come on. But I want to give you the floor now. Anything you want to say to fans, your teammates, coaches, family, anybody else, and any other social media that we missed or anything else you'd like to plug or say. And I give you the opportunity to get your final thoughts in before we say goodbye, and I thank you for this opportunity, and the floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Tom and Brad, for everything tonight. Had a lot of fun. I think it was definitely long overdue, this meeting. And I look forward to meeting one day in person, maybe at a St. Joe's basketball game.
Hey, man, even this summer. Listen, certainly the
Yeah.
weather's getting warmer here, so we'll definitely make it happen here. If you come out to my way, I'll treat you, and whatever else I can do, certainly on us.
Definitely. I did say I would plug my summer league basketball team for the rest of my life, Jam Fam, with Frank and Gino Basile, former SJC players.
Oh, Frank, obviously, number 4 all time in points scored?
Yeah.
And, I mean, Frank scored like 100 points a game that last year.
Yeah, he could score at will. So
He's probably still scoring somewhere. He scores in his sleep, Frank Basile.
Yeah. So anybody on Instagram could follow him at the official _JamFam on Instagram. Coming off a championship at the Sports Arena League. Frank put the team on his back, so
what a surprise!
Yeah. But it's fun playing with them. You can follow Long Island Sound Basketball at LI Sound Basketball on Instagram. Me and Ryan definitely have some big plans going forward with that. And I will return the favor, Brad. If you're a Nassau County person, I definitely suggest playing for Level Up. Everyone I've met, from Jesse to Brad to, just other coaches, they're great people. And you'll definitely learn a lot from them. Hopefully we can joke about it in a few months, but hopefully Zach Wilson's quarterback of the New York Jets.
Oh, you got to throw that in. Oh,
Yeah.
That's not right.
That's really about it, though. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And the official _Jam Fan, repeat that again, because I'm actually going to follow.
Oh, yeah. It's official _Jam Fam.
Ah, that's why. Okay, all right. Official _Jam Fan. We're actually going to give you a follow right now on Instagram. So that will make sure everybody follows you and everything else that the team does. And certainly Frank Basile, that's where we can watch him on a basketball court for sure. So definitely, there we go. I see it right there. Perfect. Excellent work there. So make sure you follow that. Also, Matt _Hirdt on Instagram. Follow him on Twitter as well. SJLI _MB Ball. Make sure you follow the program and some. So, Matt, it's been a tremendous honor. Don't be a stranger. So I know you're a busy man, but anytime you want to come on, the floor is definitely yours. I definitely thank you for this opportunity. The Brute Force Brad Weiss, until we meet again. Maybe Friday when you're in Miami, if the 7-line army doesn't kill you. But if that's the case, if you stay alive and you're on with us Friday, we'll also be back here with more coverage with Gordon next Tuesday in Matt's chair and Coach Winter, I think, sometime right afterwards. So a lot of basketball coverage here on Sportswire Radio. I'm excited about it. And gentlemen, thank you, and looking forward to the future, and looking forward to hanging out here very soon as well in person.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, and we were joined here by Matt Hirdt, Money Matt Hirdt, 6th all-time in SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball history in three-pointers made, 24th all-time in rebounds, also a part of the last 2 years' teams that went to the Skyline Conference Tournament playoffs here, winning 22 games and the Skyline Conference, and also alongside him his former teammate for 2 years, the Brute Force Brad Weiss, who is now 27th all-time in school history and rebounds. He is near the top of the list all-time in block shots, also the head coach for our JV Plainview JFK Hawks boys basketball team. That is also with the Long Island Sound, also the official Jam Fan basketball team with some players that played for our Golden Eagles, like the legendary Frank Basile. My name is the host and owner of the Sports Report and Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. I'll be back tomorrow with Kyle Kennedy, the Lawman, 1/4 of the Nonstop Action Wrestling Tag Team Champions. It'll be 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 8:30 in the UK. So tune in for that. If you're on sportnarium.com/play, you go back to your regularly scheduled program. And thank you again. Thank you, as the golden era is upon us on Sportswire Radio, the #1 Global Radio